Prescott trying to take advantage, going deep. Cooper, oh, one-hander! Are you kidding me?
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Purdy over the middle, and intercepted. Tejada down the sideline, and pushed out of bounds.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Daniels over the middle, caught, Pickens, touchdown Bulldogs.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Glenister, not touched across the 20. It's a race that he'll win. Touchdown Notre Dame.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon. We are loaded up with a couple of guests who will focus in on Georgia and Notre Dame in the first hour and 5 or 10 minutes of the show. Craig Smoak's off the radar. Paul's top five at the end of the show. And we'll talk NFL with David Hellman, John McClain. A couple of NFL notes to start the show, but there's a couple of college football notes we'll get to as well. But Cam Newton today, released by the Patriots. Cowboys backup quarterback, at least for right now, Paul, is Cooper Rush. Garrett Gilbert, who I thought looked pretty good. I didn't watch more than 5 minutes of preseason games this year, so I'm not one to analyze that. Your thoughts about the decision? Really, was there much of a decision? Does it matter, Cooper Rush, Garrett Gilbert?
I don't think it matters in the short term, in that the Cowboys are probably hoping someone else becomes available. But, because, again, if the answer to your question is Garrett Gilbert or Cooper Rush, I don't know what the question is. I don't know what it is. It's not good.
If the answer is Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert, then you don't want to know the question.
No, because it means Dak Prescott's hurt again. So if Dak Prescott's hurt again and Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert are playing, that's not good. So that's the biggest story around the Cowboys, I think. I think the biggest story in the NFL is Cam Newton, and I'm wondering if his little testing snafu had anything to do with it and how he reacted to that. But I don't know. And maybe it's just because Mac Jones has played that well and they drafted him at the 10th pick anyway. So we'll see. But I do think the Cowboys' backup quarterback, to me, is now their biggest question.
Is he on the roster right now? Is the backup quarterback I
really don't think so.
Okay. All right. Zach Evans, brilliantly talented running back out of North Shore High School last year. Remember, on the eve of a state championship game, was sent home by the head coach, was going to play, I forgot exactly where. He ended up at TCU, the highest-ranked recruit that TCU has ever had. And he, according to Drew Davison today, according to Gary Patterson, will not start the opening game, or doesn't mean he won't play, but will not start after breaking team policy.
I wonder if Gary Patterson tried to take his cell phone away. Is that what happened there?
Yeah, that's what happened in the championship.
You guys will remember that story. Missed the state championship game because he refused to give over his cell phone to the coaches the night before the game when everybody was staying in a hotel. That was a big red flag to me, guys. I don't know about y'all, but that was kind of a red flag. And, yeah, I think if I remember correctly, he had a very roller coaster recruitment, but I want to say he signed with Georgia originally and then got out of that and then, eventually ended up at TCU. I mean, a really good player, really talented player, but there are some red flags there. If they can sort those out, then TCU has a very dynamic running back on their hands, but you can't say that you're surprised when you hear something like that pop up with Zach Evans, honestly.
Yeah. All right, so that's the story there.
Yeah, I think I remember he was – he committed to Georgia initially, but he was one of those guys who committed or was like really hard to, I'm going to A&M or I'm going to this. He had maybe two other schools before he was with Georgia and then wound up at TCU.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was a roller coaster of a recruitment. I don't remember the exact details off the top of my head because there were so many little twists and turns. But he eventually ended up in Fort Worth, and I'm sure we'll still see him on Saturday. If not, that would obviously be notable.
Quinn Ewers, how about this? He already had the deal with kombucha. He has now signed a deal, a multi-year deal for $1.4 million, a 3-year deal. The quarterback who is a freshman at Ohio State who just graduated from South Lake Carroll High School. $1.4 million over 3 years. He has not taken a snap in a college game. He's now got 2 NIL deals. Kombucha, and this one, autograph giant GTSM.
I will ask you again, he has not played in college yet. What if he's a bust? There are more busts than are hits.
Well, they're banking on him being a hit. I mean, that's obvious what it is.
They're a megastar, yeah.
And I'm not saying that he's not going to be, but I mean, to me, if I'm gonna pay it $1 million, I want that $1 million to count for sure.
I'm sure they have some idea of what the market must be. I mean, the clamor must be there for Quinn Ewers autographs. It would not be something I would seek, even if he played for my favorite team, just because it's not up my alley, quite frankly. But I know there are a lot of people that are into autographs or have probably some vast Ohio State collection that they want to add the new, blue chip quarterback to the shelf that has, the Terrell Pryor autograph and the every other, the Kirk Herbstreit autograph and the JT Barrett autograph or whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's some people like that out there for every fan base. But, yeah, it's kind of silly. But, I mean, what are you going to do? This is the thing. These businesses are still sorting this out themselves. Like, they don't have a grip on NIL. So, yeah, somebody might waste $1 million on a dude who's a bust and doesn't play for a couple of years, or they might have the next Tom Brady, except for in college. And they can make much more than they're paying out via his services, because if he ends up being something, this is just the start of it. This is before he's even played a game. So imagine if he actually plays, does well, what that could jump up to. But yeah, it's silly. It's a lot of money for signatures, regardless of who you are. But I guess that's up to the business's discretion of what they think somebody's worth. I don't see the value there, but I'm not somebody that's in this avenue, so I'm sure I'm missing something. But it's kind of crazy that we're talking about a story like that.
Armstrong, do you have the email I sent to you and Jack right before the show on the EA Sports Madden 22? This actually is a video, but here is Madden 22, the EA Sports announcing they will go with the following college legends from 10 schools: Clemson, Miami, LSU in Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, USC, Oregon, Nebraska, and Michigan State. Now, I know Nebraska, I've already made too much about them this week, and they're awful. And I got a note about their sellout streak. But over the last, they're blue blood forever. They got a lot. Their legendary team will be amazing. I am trying to figure out, now Michigan State's had some players, but I'm trying to figure out Michigan State, Bubba Smith, Andre Rison, Joe DeLamalure, Lorenzo White, they've had, but I was stunned when I saw that. And then Oregon, of course, is the new flashy team. But are they anymore really that new and flashy?
I don't think so. And
I'm even trying to figure out Clemson, even though I know they've been on a great run. I'm talking about when you look at where's Alabama.
Well, I mean, they did something like this, I believe, last year, and they had several, like I know that Texas was in it last year. Because I remember a post about this like a long time ago. So I don't play the video games. I don't play Madden. But I want to say this was on there last year, so somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here. But, yeah, I mean, there are a couple teams you're like, they could have probably gone with somebody. I mean, Clemson, though, why would you not have Clemson? They're the second hottest brand in college football. Like, it doesn't really matter what their long history is, and even then they've got a good one. But, I mean, if you're talking name the 2 top teams in college football, there's a good chance you might get Bama and Ohio State, but if it's not one of those 2, it's definitely Clemson.
Ohio State's not on here.
That's surprising.
And Ohio State and Alabama.
They might have been on there last year.
And there might have been some, kind of a deal. I don't know.
Okay, look, but the thing is, legendary programs, and Michigan State fans who may be watching us right now, I'm sorry if this comes across as harsh, but I've never thought of them as a legendary program.
No, I haven't either. They're a really good program. They're not a blue blood in my mind. Michigan and Ohio State are the two blue bloods in the Big Ten as far as I'm concerned. I think you could probably throw Penn State in there as well, but I would have those three right off the top of my head above Michigan State. But again, I mean, maybe there's just a lot of clamor for doing something a little bit different and you want to highlight somebody different. I don't know. But yeah, that is sort of the outlier amongst that group. And yeah, kind of surprising to not see an Alabama there. I did pull up an old NFL list of the top 10 Michigan State football players of all time that played in the NFL. Linebacker Brad Van Pelt in the 70s with the Giants. Flozell Adams, Julian Peterson.
Julian
Carl
Peterson,
Banks, Bubba Smith, like you said.
There's two Hall of Famers, Herb Adderley and Joe DeLamielleure.
You're talking about
and
pro
Herb
football.
Adderley, they had at number one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot of anything here recently, quite frankly.
And no one has Notre Dame on there either. Mike George just said, what about Notre Dame? And again, there may have been already one of those.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I remember they put out a graphic a long time ago, but I don't remember because this last year's been so weird if that was for last year's game or this year's game, but it would make sense if they changed up some of the teams.
I saw there's a lot of Vince Young on there, and that's not a surprise at all that he would get a lot of the USC and Texas in that classic game at 05 as well. So Nebraska, we had them on Mitch Sherman yesterday. They're terrible. Their sellout streak is 376 now because donors bought whatever remaining tickets there were to the game against mighty Fordham. Now, they sold out games no matter if they were hosting Notre Dame or Oklahoma or whoever it was or perhaps Buffalo. This just means they've just delayed the inevitable. This means you can't do this every week because like next week, I don't know who it is, Buffalo. Somebody going to do that again? They got the money to do it again? This means your streak is on, like your football team is on, you're on fumes.
Yeah.
Does it count? Sure it does. It's a sellout streak. Jerry Jones has done it. Others have done it. And it's not who's there. What will be interesting is how many people will be in that stadium because even when they have been bad for the last 10 or 15 years or on and off, they have still been blanket red throughout that place.
Well, yeah. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, I'm sure they're going to give those tickets away to
students.
No, they're giving them to kids.
Kids. But again, I mean, are people still going to go even if it's free?
I wonder if that's an NCAA violation.
Yeah, it's not.
To give it to like at-risk children?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying they're recruitable players. I hope not.
Have them sign an NIL deal now.
I did something at SFA one year where I gave Kyle Keller some tickets, and he gave them to at-risk or those who otherwise could not afford to be able to go to an SFA game, and their tickets aren't very expensive.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, I think it's a good thing that they're doing that for those kids, but it's a fake streak now, and probably was far before that. It's a streak that only Nebraska fans care about, quite honestly, because everybody else who saw that tweet's just laughing at it from every other fan base because it's not a real sellout. It's a forced sellout. I mean, I think it's a cool thing to be able to say, but now you're saying you're 346 games, and it's yeah, but not really. You know what I mean? It's just it's a fake streak now because you're forcing the sellout by buying extra tickets so you can, in theory, have a sellout. You could be 0-12 every year and no one shows up, but if you want to, you could just buy all the tickets and claim a sellout.
Well, you remember a few years ago when Jimbo Fisher left A&M, they had to reschedule a game for the end of the year. They got knocked out by a hurricane.
You mean Florida State?
I say Florida. What did I say?
You said A&M.
When he left for A&M, when Jimbo Fisher left for A&M, and Florida State had to reschedule a game at the end of the year. They got knocked out by a hurricane, so they could keep their bowl streak alive and get to their 6th win.
Yeah.
And as an alum, I was just like, no, and not even knowing that Willie Taggart was going to come in the next year and wreck it anyway. And so they had the bowl streak for one more year. What's it worth? If you didn't get it honest, don't do it.
I agree. And you know how I feel about it. To me, it almost got to the point where I was like, I don't know how they're doing it. 50-something years, whatever it might be.
It's a really cool
The next one in line is Oklahoma, just over 130. So you proved your point, but like everything else, it's easy to sell out when that's the only thing in town, and you're great for 40 years. Now you're not, and goodbye to the streak at some point. That's just a matter of time.
I almost think it would have been the perfect time to just have the streak end. I mean, it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. It's really not. It's just something Nebraska wants to continue promoting, and everybody else kind of knows it's not exactly what it was before. But, with all the changes and just kind of the feeling around there, I mean, maybe you should have let the streak die, And now it's kind of like the one thing you're holding on to, but there's like nobody actually excited about the product they're showing up to see. So maybe less worry about the sellout streak. Not that they're worried about it, but, less about the sellout streak and more about the actual football team. But, an impressive record regardless of if it ended this weekend or if they, keep buying tickets.
I do know this is that the Big 12 has an annually scheduled meeting going on today. I'm not sure exactly what is obviously the main thing on the table. You would think is their future. That better be. It better not be about anything else. And so Mack Rhodes, Baylor Director of Athletics, who would normally join us on Tuesday, maybe at some point this week, hoping to be able to talk to him about that subcommittee, expansion, whatever. But I believe it's today, a scheduled Big 12 meeting, so he is not available today. Here's a text on the transfer portal and how maybe those who are not a part of major programs and how it might affect Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, etc. This is from the 407. With the transfer portal being so impactful, by the way, 254-339-1122, with players not having to sit anymore, is there an advantage now for city schools like UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, USF, Memphis, because a lot of the 3, 4, or 5-star kids who went to schools in the area, players don't choose the local city school out of high school, but when it's time to transfer back, if they become disenchanted, whatever the word you want to insert there, a lot of times they do come back closer to home.
Yeah, I think those schools have benefited from that a lot. If you're didn't cut it at Florida, but you want to go back close to home and you play at USF or UCF, yeah. I mean, it's not that Florida's all that far away; it's 2 hours, but from those places. But yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. I think it's happened. Look, USF under Jim Leavitt. One of the things that they did was they kind of poached the bottom of Miami, Florida State, and Florida's recruiting classes of guys who were at the time partial qualifiers and said, "Look, you want to come here and play because you're not going to have to jump through any hoops." And that's how they got a bunch of those guys, and they got good kind of quick.
That's how SMU's good right now. Mm-hmm. It's through transfers. I mean, yeah, they get their occasional Reggie Robertson and some of those guys are recruiting well, but Shane Buechele wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Tanner Mordecai wasn't there, so on and so forth. I mean, SMU's been a team that has really cleaned up through the transfer portal, and it's oftentimes, like the guy who transfers from Texas because, he's not going to see playing time or maybe he isn't a fit anymore, and he's originally from Fort Worth, and he ends up at SMU. So, the transfer portal, I don't think it's just, it's beneficial to some of those state schools or whatever city schools, I guess you call them. But I think it's just in general beneficial for everybody. I don't think there's really anybody who benefits more. I mean, look at Oklahoma. We got a running back problem. Who do we go get? We go get the Georgia running back and get the LSU running back that are available, even though the LSU running back's a story I hopefully will have for Off the Radar. More on that, what Lincoln Riley said about Trey Bradford, but you need Utah needs a quarterback. I go grab Baylor's quarterback. You know what I'm saying? So it's not as Baylor needs a nose tackle. Go grab LSU's nose tackle. So I mean, everybody's is feasting in the transfer portal, but certainly I think there probably is some data to back up that if you're one of those types of schools, you are maybe striking it richer than most, but you're also behind the 8 ball to start off with. So
from Sparsh M. Michigan State also has a famous gaming department pipeline to L.A., so there could be probably or possibility of alums that work at EA Sports.
That's the best explanation that we've gotten so far.
That's why I read it, because it's not just it's thank you. Appreciate that chat.
Yeah, and I want to say maybe that this is the first round they're doing it, because I think Michigan State was on there before as well. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I mean that would make a lot of sense. If you have that type of pull behind the scenes, and you're like, hey, who should we include? And you can get your alma mater in there. Yeah, go for it. No, they had done it twice because it was Texas Tech last year was in it. Remember, randomly Texas Tech was in it only because of Patrick Mahomes. I'm starting to remember that now, but yeah.
Andrews, UCF, we obviously know his favorite team. UCF had a bunch of local kids transfer home this year, including 5-star wide receiver Jordan Johnson from Notre Dame.
Yeah, there you go.
So there's another example of what we were talking about. Our first guest will be in 30 minutes. Jake Rowe covers Georgia. We'll have Pete Sampson on Notre Dame. They have Florida State, Georgia, of course, and Clemson. Yesterday we highlighted Clemson. Also today, we'll look at some of the other games as well. This is one that's kind of interesting. Have you guys yet focused in on the Big 12 games this week from Andrew? Future Big 12 games is what he said. Boise State at UCF, Texas Tech, and Houston. Thanks for the chat there as well.
Yeah, that's funny that Texas Tech and Houston are playing to start the year, because that could really be a preview. And man, it's been interesting to get all the different expansion, thoughts and what that could look like. And wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe a rumble or two coming out of today's meeting. I would think so. I would think somebody would have something to say about what they're talking about, even if they can't really say a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, that would be a big win for Houston in this whole conversation, right? Go out and beat Tech, and then see, we belong, and have that kind of a bragging right for the rest of the year. We know they wanted to play Baylor badly last year to have the same opportunity, but yeah, I'm far more open to the idea than maybe some people are. I'm just curious of like what will be the cutoff, because I feel like it's a no-brainer the Big 12 is going to expand, but my question is, especially for like the Houston side of things, is how many? Because if it's only 2, I don't know that Houston makes that cut. I mean, in terms of where are they valued? Are they looked at as, I think BYU is probably the most valued brand they're looking at, but then where does Houston compare to UCF? And if it's only 2, then you got to cut bait somewhere. But if it's 4, then I think they're probably in that group of 4 pretty safely.
Yeah, I would. The only thing is, say the top 5 are in whatever order: BYU, Memphis, UCF, Houston, Cincinnati. Those are your guys. Well, you get to determine whether you go add Houston because they're in such a big market and it helps you in Texas a little bit, or you'd say, we should add Cincinnati because that puts us in a different spot. That's what it's going to come down to if it's 4. If it's 4, I agree with you. They're probably in a good spot.
Yeah, I would think Houston probably makes the cut at 4, but 2, then that gets a little bit more dicey. And even 4 would be kind of interesting because, again, this is not a report. This is just talking. If it is UCF and BYU, who would those other 2 teams be? Like, do you take Houston over Memphis, or do you take Houston over Cincinnati, or potentially any of the other teams that have been mentioned as well? That would be really interesting to know kind of what their range is. And, you even have people that go crazy with the theories on, add 8, make it 16, and that would be wild as well.
There's Caden Grace is the one that sent me that lengthy it was really a really well done, almost a documentary email to me, and I really appreciated it. He just texted, he goes, by the way, when you hear about legal rumors, there are no such things as legal rumors. Litigation is documented by filing briefs and many assorted documents to start the ball rolling. It is all very public and verifiable when anyone reports that there are any kind of legal rumors. Not that we did, but that a couple of things were brought up in the chat room as well. Paul?
All right, won't have too much time because we got a lot of guests today to take phone calls, so let's go right now. Chris in Missouri, you're on Sick'em 365 Radio.
Hey, guys, got a quick question for you. This should be pointed at all 8 of the remaining Big 12 teams, but I think it's kind of Baylor-centric. Should Baylor press Bowlesby to increase the buyout for the remaining 8 schools? The reason I ask is because Baylor built McLean Stadium in 2014, and that was $226 million. I'm sure some of the other stadiums around the remaining 8 have to be refurbished or maybe rebuilt, and that's going to be a huge burden if the Big 12 contract isn't there in a couple years. I just want to know what you think, because I'm thinking you'd almost have to press to $100 million, for the buyout, because you can't do anything about the guarantee of rights till you get a new contract. But what do you think? Thanks.
Chris, thanks for your call. Look, Kansas is redoing their football stadium right now. They've already got the money for it. TCU just did theirs. Baylor just did theirs. I don't know. Kansas State and Iowa State, I don't think they necessarily need them. Iowa State did an
There's
upgrade
always somebody tinkering, but we know what UT's
Iowa
doing.
State just did a big upgrade like about a decade ago or something like that, so they're always tinkering. Jones AT&T Stadium has done a couple different things. I'm sure they would love a facelift if they could get one. So I think most of the teams in the Big 12 stadiums are pretty current. That happened. Look here. Actually, the one who was behind the 8 ball is one of the ones that was leaving, and that was DKR. As big as it was, they're behind when you look at most of these SEC stadiums. They were behind. They had to do some things. So
they've added and added, and don't think A&M redoing theirs didn't ring some bells. And now they've got that new end zone where the offices are, and the big Longhorn that they lit up like a firecracker. Paul, stop.
That's what it is.
They're apparently finishing another remodel, right? They've been redoing all that, and I feel like they did that like 5 years ago, but I guess that's the game of college football nowadays. But you're not going to the buyout point, you can't retroactively increase the buyout money and say, no, actually you owe us this much. That's a nice idea, but the figure is the figure contractually, so I don't think there's anything that you could actually do about that.
All right, 254-339-1122. Let's break here. Colt Barber today in the premium section, which is, of course, a paid part of Sikkim365.com. But he has a story up. The Alpha, which Baylor players emerged as the top dogs during fall camp. We'll come back with who he says is a part of that, and maybe if there's somebody missing or who you think might be the Alpha. I remember a young local kid named Trayon Smith, who died last year in a drowning accident, a horrible story, from Yo High School in Cameron, Texas, and he was just a stud. They won 3 straight state championships, and they would have won 4, but he tore his knee in the first half when they were beating Brock. And I called him, not that it's because of me, but I called him an alpha dog. And so who's the alpha dog? Of your favorite college football program, we're looking at what Colt Barber has to say about Baylor, and also feedback as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to Caden, I read it was a lengthy email, but you stated out of the gates, hey, grab a drink and get ready to read this. And you made a lot of great points on conference realignment and why Houston makes sense, and even SMU to a lesser extent. I think I kind of said yesterday, I'm all for Houston. I just I'm trying to look at it from the other Texas program's point of view, but he did bring up some good points about why Houston would be beneficial for Baylor and TCU, and you'd have more of a lockdown of, part of the state, because there's nothing you can do about A&M and UT's influence, but you could at least lock up the rest of it. And quite frankly, there would be nobody from the state for anybody else to poach if realignment continues, because there's no other worthy candidates. Your next level would be UTEP and SMU, and I'm not including SMU in welcome to the Big 12, because I still don't believe SMU should be in the Big 12. I'm not going to stop on that belief. They don't need them for Dallas market. Houston I'm all for, but I'm not on board with SMU in any way, shape, or form.
Not that SMU would turn it down.
No, of course not.
But I don't think they're going to pursue it that hard.
Right.
Because they know they're good where they are right now.
They have a good avenue right now.
Yeah.
From Southern Cafe on the chat room, I know decisions are about football, but Cincinnati, Memphis would be great in basketball. There's a lot of great basketball opportunities, but it is not about men's basketball, even though that is a very much a revenue-producing sport. Back with more, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Bet with the 3-decade leader, BetUS.com. Join now, 125% bonus or 200% with crypto. Promo code Sikkim125 and Sikkim1200. Bet sports, horses, casino, and more at BetUS.com. You bet, you win, you get paid with BetUS. Why BetUS? They've been serving clients for over 25 years and prides themselves on being known as America's favorite sports book. And with action on every sport across the world, they can pretty much guarantee that they've got your game, and they offer the industry's biggest retail bonuses to keep their players betting longer, like the one I just told you about. Promo code Sikkim125 and Sikkim200. Those are great, great deals. The BetUS loyalty program, legendary as well. They keep their players up to date with articles, players, team stats, and trends, giving you the right tools to make the best wagering decisions. That's BetUS.com. Use promo code Sikkim125 or Sikkim200.
The Labor Day sales event is going on now at Allen Samuels. With the all-new 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L now arriving and in stock, this beautiful, rugged third-row seat carries the prestigious Jeep heritage. Come in today and see this all-new model and fall in love. Allen Samuels, located at 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness was built to help give you a chance to enjoy an elite tennis facility, but also to remain fit and reshape your body. And ahead of the curve with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman and courts available. Like your body, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has gone through its own physical changes. Large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available with their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Beautiful sound of members working out, running, lifting, stretching, group exercise classes throughout each day. Personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. New look bar and lounge area with beer and wine with large flat screens. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and both include shower, sauna, and whirlpool, and a world-class tennis courts facility and youth academy led by Pro Britt Coleman. Fitness and tennis merchandise and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. It's time to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
So, Cole Barber in the premium section, the Alpha Baylor players emerged as the top dogs during fall camp. Each of you who watch us or listen to us, YouTube 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. If you're a fan, we have a Georgia writer coming up here pretty soon, or Notre Dame, or whoever it might be. TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, whoever. Who's the Alpha? His list includes Connor Galvin, Abram Smith, Treston Ebner, Terrell Bernard, Apu Ika, Jalen Petrie, and R.J. Sneed.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. The only one that I would maybe debate a little bit would be R.J. Sneed. He doesn't really strike me as an alpha the way that he plays, or at least up until this point. He's made some great catches. He's made some great catches that didn't need to be great catches because it could have been routine, but he fell weird or just made an outstretched catch or whatever. RJ is a senior leader. He's a very good player, but I'm sorry, my definition of alpha is different. And if I see an alpha wide receiver, I want to see a dude that's taking over the football game. I want to see a dude that's taking a 10-yard pass and turn it into a 50-yard touchdown, and I haven't seen that from him. So he should be, and maybe this year he will be, but I totally agree with all the rest of them. But that one, just my personal list, if I was doing one, I would not include R.J. Sneed right now.
All right, 254-339-1122. Yeah, because there's nobody on offense, and he's got Connor Galvin. He's obviously a young, talented
and that's
kid
borderline, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's good, but I mean, in comparison to what? Mm-hmm. He's good for the Baylor O-line. Well, shoot. Paul probably get out there and be good for the Baylor O-line or Jack or whoever. Like, you know what I mean? So I think Connor's a good player, but he is set up to have an alpha type year. I will say that. Like, all these guys he mentioned are set. The table's set for them to have those types of years. Galvin, I don't know that he's played like an alpha fully, and Snead certainly, in my opinion, has not.
Well, no, I don't know.
But, I mean, Abram Smith's on there, and it's a prediction. I totally get it. So, yeah, I mean, who could have an alpha-type year? I agree with all of those, including R.J. Snead.
All right. Also, by the way, these are nominations. You can go to Sikkim 365 in the premium section, and you can make your comments well known. From John Kelly on the chat room. Would you please explain to them, the audience, why the Big 12 is a Power 5 conference? The NCAA announced what they called Autonomy 5 conferences. Power 5. The ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, the Pac-12, and the Big 12. So that's...
Actually, the conferences announced that they were. They got together and they made bowl agreements and they came up with the college football playoff or the BCS. Like, all of that's like all the BCS college football playoff has not been the NCAA. It's been the big conferences together working this out to make sure that their teams got it. And a few years ago, they came up with the term Power 5 or then Autonomy 5 because they were going to do things autonomously when it came to determining the championship from the NCAA in football, and those are the conferences that made the bowl agreements. So the ones that have the bowl agreements with the Fiesta Bowl and the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, and now the Cotton and the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl or whatever it is, those 6 bowls, the New Year's 6, are all Power 5 or are the Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10.
And Notre Dame.
Yes, they have those. They're those contracted bowl games, but also those are the teams that basically, said to the NCAA in so many ways, give us more power to pass rules and legislation. We don't need to be like, if you're Alabama, why are you fighting with Fordham over a transfer rule? Mm-hmm. They don't matter in this conversation. They don't bring anything to the table. Sorry for the random Fordham fan who's listening. Is like, why did I just get hit with a drive-by? But it's the first team that came to mind. So Alabama and Auburn and Texas and Oklahoma, they didn't want to have to mess around with teams that aren't even anywhere in their stratosphere over rules, right? So basically they said, we need more say, or how about the option of we don't get that and we just break away and we go do our own thing and set our own rules, which is basically what Greg Sankey's been threatening to do anyways. And so, yeah, they were given more of an overall say in some of these conversations about rules and legislation.
In August of 2014, the NCAA Division I Board of Directors passed a new model giving the 5 major conferences authority to create some of their own legislation and voting rights for athletes. 16-2 vote. So the NCAA, although those 5 conferences were going to do it no matter what, they had to kind of almost in that particular position kind of like wave the magic wand or whatever. But, again, it's now becoming... now even more separation. That's what all of this is about, to see what happens if there's another level of this as far as these conferences or some of these programs as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's all it really means, though, is that basically you're part of the contracted New Year's games, conferences, and you're also sitting there with a bigger say as far as passing stuff or getting stuff done. So, I mean, that's basically what it is and what it boils down to. And it's, it's kind of interesting to see that there's now maybe a third level that's even higher that's going to be even more of a separation potentially if the whole super conference thing goes the way some people believe that it will.
All right, here's from Andrew. Does it hurt teams like USF, Memphis, San Diego State? They don't have on-campus stadiums. Baylor didn't have one until they opened up McLean Stadium in 2014.
I don't think it helps. But, I mean, it depends. Miami.
Does USC?
No.
UCLA?
No.
Some don't.
Yeah, but it depends. Like, USC overcame it. UCLA, maybe it hurts them now. I don't know, because of the traffic in Los Angeles. But Miami didn't have one and hasn't had one forever. Right now, I think Miami is hurt by playing where they do play in the NFL stadium. I think they would be better off playing closer to campus at Coral Gables than they would going up to where they play. But yeah, I think sometimes it hurts and sometimes it helps. But what always helps is that the team is good.
But not everybody that has an on-campus stadium thrives with it. There's struggles still with those.
Kansas is right there in the middle.
Yeah, I remember going to that one. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it hurts to have one on campus. I think it helps to have a stadium on campus. Now you got to be careful with what you do with it, that it fits who you are as a student body and alumni base, because otherwise you're putting a lot of money into something. And hey, the last couple of years at Baylor, now last year, of course, COVID didn't count. There were a couple of times after they had gone through the scandal, and there were some times when you could have, a piece of dynamite could have gone off and nobody would have been touched with it. But it's, for the most part, it's a perfect size for who they are, the size of school they are, and the base of what you have in Waco or around Central Texas. And they've filled that up many, many times. They really have since 2014.
Well, to the actual question, I don't know that's – I have no idea if that's being discussed. I can't imagine it's very high on the priority list of reasons why they're going to invite somebody or not. Maybe it's a check mark against you, further along in the process, but I don't think that's even a starting point or even one of the first few things that they're probably worried about. Don't know, though, but I just think that a lot more of it has to do with things besides like where your stadium's located.
Well, yeah, USF plays in Raymond James. It's a nice stadium. I don't think their fans are bothered by it. I think they'll go down there. It's not too terribly far from the school, so.
How many people go to their games? Is that again, one of those, the size of stadium?
When they're good, it's
40,
probably
50?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to the calls. 254-339-1122. Then we'll have a writer in Jake Rowe who covers Georgia football.
Jeff in Mexico. You're on Sick of 365 Radio on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Hey, how you guys doing today? Roll Tide.
There you go. Thank you.
What's going on, Jeff?
Hey, to me, this realignment seems pretty simple for the first four teams. Obviously you have to have BYU. That gives you the most market. It gives you the most eyes. It makes the most sense. The number 2 team has to be Memphis because it's tied in with FedEx. That gives you a sponsor. Plus, they have really good attendance. The third team, I believe, to keep West Virginia happy is you'd want to get Cincinnati. That way it gives them a team that's close. Yes, they don't have a long rivalry, but it could become a rivalry. And then the fourth team has to be UCF because of the attendance they have, the big school they have. The problem I have with Houston is Houston has great facilities, and yes, they have people, but they don't put butts in seats. More people go to high school Dallas football games than go to Houston college games.
Yeah. Jeff, thanks for your call. And, TCU has the same problem Houston does, though. So, if you're talking about butts in the seats, TCU has that same problem. They really do. You're not going to find too many sellouts at Amon Carter Stadium. You're just not.
Yeah, and that was really shocking because when Baylor did go through their downtimes pre-Matt Rule coming in to eventually turn that thing around in years 2 and 3, we went to a couple of games to cover there. We've been to a lot. I was stunned at how many people were missing. I really was. Because, again, you always heard about, and Baylor put this up themselves back at the old Floyd Casey. They had that tarp in the end zone because it covered up where nobody was going to be sitting because they didn't draw very well. TCU kind of escapes this as far as a school that really doesn't draw very well. And, damn, I don't know why. Gary Patterson, for the most part, has done an incredible job at that place.
I know why. It's because it's a tiny school and because a lot of the people that go there don't care about football. I know several people who went to TCU, and they are far from sports fans. So they maybe occasionally went to a football game, but for the most part, they partied or they went to school, and that was about it. A lot of well-off kids, too, that probably have – a boat to go be on the weekend or whatever. And I'm not trying to, make light of all the students that go there, but that is certainly a big part of their student body are kids like that.
I keep forgetting how small their enrollment is.
They're a smaller school, yeah. They're not tiny, but they're not large by any means. And what you said, though, is very interesting. I appreciate you, laying out why you would select each school. And what it brings to mind for me is I go back to what I said at the start of the show. That's why I'm so curious to know what the number will be. Because if 2 is the number, then there's some very quality schools. There's like multiple that are getting left off. If 4 is the number, then there might be a couple that get left off, but that's where the Houston piece comes in. Like, do they make the cut at 4, or are they a team that makes the cut if it's like 6? You know what I mean? So, like, if it's 4, I like the 4 that you said, but then, yeah, that leaves a couple more teams that are like, man, they'd probably be pretty good too. But they you know, I'm sure West Virginia would love to have a closer team. That could be UCF and Cincinnati. I mean, both of those teams would fit really well with West Virginia compared to what they've had recently. So I like your grouping, but I am very curious to see what the actual expansion goal number is, because obviously that will dictate who's in, who's out, and who should have probably been in or been out.
For West Virginia, it cuts travel down quite a bit if you can get a couple of those teams. By the way, to close it out with this on the expansion as well, 321, the Big 12, 321 area code. Curious your thoughts on why you have to be proactive. The Big 12 needs to expand to look proactive. Matters in terms of perception versus waiting until after Texas OU are gone. And it gives them a chance, whoever is added, to play and possibly even play Texas and Oklahoma before they leave. Now, again, we don't know the illegal thing about if you bring somebody in, do they get to bolt pretty quickly, and does that also affect the buyout? And that's one of my first questions. We get Mac Rhodes back on this show, which we hope we'll have him on at some point this week. It will not be today. Coming up next, we focused in on Georgia. Heard a lot of things about players' injuries, and their roster has been depleted a little bit, but it's still Georgia, and that's next. That's next on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got the summer savings event going on right now over at Richard Carr. That means a lot of great deals on the lot with both new and pre-owned vehicles over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on right now. You can check out the various models of Cadillacs. How about the smooth and powerful CT4 sedan? You can have that for only $33,395. They've also got the XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs in the style and size to fit your lifestyle. Of course, all the Cadillacs have responsive power, advanced technology, and exceptional agility. You can also get back on the road with space, safety, and luxury in a Buick. Right now, well-qualified buyers get 0% financing for 72 months on most 2021 Buick SUVs. And as I mentioned, they're also loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks, all of them priced to move during the summer savings event. And each one of those vehicles goes through a 172-point inspection before it ever hits Richard Carr's lot. With dozens of lenders, they say yes when others say no, and 100% credit approval is always the goal. And if you're here in the Central Texas, Greater Waco area, then Richard Carr is your local hometown dealership, and they want a chance to earn your business and do so by giving you great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. So come by and take a test drive or get in contact with the good folks over at Richard Carr, and they can bring the test drive to you. It's a summer savings event going on all month at Richard Carr, and they are owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobbettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasoning, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, here we go. This 3 o'clock hour winding down. Pete Sampson, theathletic.com on Notre Dame, will join us momentarily. NFL teams are releasing their 53-man roster. A Baylor note, just saw this come down, that one of the writers who covers San Francisco saying from what he's being told that JaMycal Hasty is going to make the 49ers' initial 53-man roster. Of course, he had a nice preseason, especially the last couple of weeks. I think scored a couple of touchdowns recently. From Matt Barrows, who covers the 49ers, that JaMycal Hasty will make the initial 53-man roster. Of course, that gets chewed on a little bit between now and the opening game. And this year, even longer, because it's a week and a half until they play.
Well, I'll strike that from off the radar. Congratulations, JaMycal Hasty. A big, thing for him to make that team. So good for him.
All right, we are joined now by Jake Rowe. He covers Georgia for Dogs 247. Jake, how much of what we hear or see or maybe read, Georgia having been battered a little bit during their fall camp with injuries?
I think a lot of it's accurate. They're going to be missing a couple of key guys, a few key guys against Clemson. George Pickens, everybody's known since the spring. Darnell Washington, the big 6'8" tight end out of Las Vegas. He's a sophomore. He's more than likely not going to play. Foot injury. Tyke Smith, the defensive back they got from West Virginia, is also banged up, and they're going to be without Eric Gilbert, the transfer they got from LSU. Georgia made a big splash in the transfer portal market this offseason, and 2 of the 3 guys they got aren't going to be available to play in this game. Eric Gilbert's not with the team right now. So they're going to be missing some key guys, but they're also getting healthier and getting guys back kind of almost by the day, we're learning. They had some injuries in preseason camp that have kind of worked themselves out, and they're not going to be as unhealthy for the opener as they were a couple weeks ago, but they're still going to be missing some key guys.
Without Pickens, that's a big one. Who takes his place? Because with this Clemson team, as good as the Georgia defense may be, you're going to have to match him on some big plays.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton, I think, is going to be Georgia's number 1 wide receiver. He came in last year And he was raw. I mean, you saw it early in the season. He ran the wrong route in the opener against Arkansas, and it caused an interception. He did some things, later on in the year, however, that kind of gave you the impression that he's got number one receiver capability. And this kid had 8 catches for 197 yards, 2 touchdowns against Mississippi State. I mean, he was, another catch for about 10 or 15 yards away from breaking Georgia's school record for all-time receiving yards in a game as a freshman. And he had a big game against Alabama last year. He had some long runs, some long screen plays. Pickens is that alpha dog in that receiver room in terms of going up and making a play. But Jermaine Burton, when you look at the entire skill set, receiver, size, speed, athleticism, quickness, and the ability to play multiple spots, run after catch, he may be Georgia's most dangerous wideout in that regard, and he should be healthy and ready to go. He's going to step into that number one role.
So, Jake, JT Daniels will be the man at QB1. Had to overcome injuries and things like that, but really shined towards the end of the year. What's the confidence level and anticipation, expectations for JT Daniels guiding this offense?
It's been really interesting to follow this offseason because, Kirby Smart, whether he's being truthful or not, I don't know. But he's always the guy that harps on mental this, mental that, focus, and the intangibles, or not necessarily the intangibles, but kind of the abstract adjectives, I would say, and nouns of kind of describing and putting labels on a guy. Well, this offseason, it was no concern as far as that goes. I mean, he's talked over and over about how impressed and how confident he is in JT Daniels' ability to prepare and focus, and his one-track mind in terms of playing quarterback and getting ready to play and things of that nature. All the talk was about the physical improvement. He got bigger, he got stronger, he got more mobile, and I think that's something that kind of raised my eyebrows as far as this team goes, because I think those are things that I think that's a good thing, because JT Daniels is a guy that, listen, he can handle the mental aspect of the quarterback position. He did show last year that he's an extremely tough football player. I mean, he got beat up pretty good in that Cincinnati game, but kept coming. Finally led them on a game-winning drive where they kicked a field goal and eked out a win, despite missing quite a few big-time players in that game. He got off to a little bit of a slow start this preseason. Didn't have a very good first scrimmage. Had a very good second scrimmage and a really good last 2 or 3 weeks of practice. So, I mean, I think the confidence level is really high there. And you've heard players on both sides of the ball talk about kind of the way he goes about his business and how much they appreciate it.
All right, Georgia and Clemson. We know Georgia's got they have alpha dogs, they have dudes, athletes that can run, all that kind of thing. But isn't this one of the few teams, not that there's more than just one or two, but isn't Clemson one of those teams as well that can match them easily dog for dog?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Clemson's got a lot of really good players, man. I mean, Clemson is stacked, and you look no further than the quarterback position where DJ Uiagalelei is a big time football player, big time potential. He's got a couple starts under his belt, so that's going to help him. Clemson's defensive line is one of the most talented in the country. Georgia also has a really talented one, but they're not going to play anybody else on the schedule that when you start comparing position units side by side, is going to really be able to compare to them on the defensive line. Clemson's that team. Clemson's the only defensive line on Georgia's schedule that I think could really give Georgia's offensive line a problem. Not that I think it's an elite offensive line, but it's a good one. And, the Tigers have 9 of 11 starters coming back on defense. One of those starters is going to start for one of the guys that would have returned is going to start for Georgia, Darian Kendrick at cornerback. He transferred in. But you look at the wide receivers; they're all big, they're all athletic. I think the one area where Clemson is a big time question mark is their offensive line. But I remember a few years ago when Trevor Lawrence was a freshman, and that offensive line was supposed to be a question mark going into the Alabama game in the national championship game, and they beat the fool out of Alabama. So that coaching staff has shown that they know how to kind of coach around their weaknesses, and I think the offensive line is a weak point for this team. But we'll see how they can scheme around it.
Jake, you mentioned the schedule that they have, and if this is not a year for Kirby Smart, especially if he can pull the first one off to go undefeated, I'm not sure what is. I know that the cocktail party comes up at the end of October, but if they do win this game, do you see them being a team that could get on just an unbelievable roll?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, if Georgia win or lose this first game, obviously you win it. If Georgia wins this first game, anything less than an undefeated regular season feels like a failure. If Georgia loses this game, any more than one loss in the regular season feels like a failure. It's one of those situations where Georgia can give itself some margins for error by winning this first game, and they can still have all the goals on the table if they lose it. But those 11 games, I haven't made my season predictions yet. But when I do, there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to pick Georgia to win those final 11 games because they're just going to be favored by at least a touchdown or in a lot of instances by double digits to win those games, and they should win them all.
What is their biggest concern?
Oh, man. It's tough because they don't really have like a glaring, oh, my God, what are they going to do about this position type concern. But they've got about 3 different spots, I would say, where they've got to kind of get it figured out, and they need to get better as the season goes along. I'd say cornerback. The defensive backfield, just in general, that cornerback and nickel spot, I think are spots they're going to have to kind of get settled. I think they've got to get some stuff sorted out on the offensive line because, one of their centers got hurt. The guy that was projected to be the starter early on suffered an injury to his snapping hand, and he was going to be in a battle for the center spot anyway. But they've got to get healthy and get, gelled on the offensive line. And they've got to get healthy at wide receiver as well. I think that's another big one.
Hey, man, we appreciate your time. Have fun. What a game, huh? What a great opening game after the dud of a handful of games that not many people cared about to open the weekend or open the season. That's Jake Rowe, Dogs 247, covers Georgia. Thanks for his time on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Coming up next, he covers Notre Dame. We've had him before. Pete Sampson on their opening game with Florida State. This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Pickup Outfitters can help deck out your truck, your pickup truck. Pickup Outfitters with grill guards and bumpers and steps and much more that can make sure that what you have with your pickup truck or even with your minivan or SUV is what you want. Maybe to change the look up or maybe to make it even more safe or safer when you're driving around because they can help you with what you need. Bumpers, grill guards, and also much more. Jay Arrett and Pickup Outfitters at 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco. It's createacommotion.com, and if you've ever seen the commercials that Jay Arrett gets produced for his company and his business, and you know he loves to create a commotion, but he does get your attention. But bottom line is you can do all that. You still have to have fantastic product that people want on their truck, on their SUV, or their minivan, and also the ability to afford what they have, and they do. Go look at the showroom, and if you do get something installed, if you buy it from them and install it from them, there's that lifetime installation warranty. It's createacommotion.com and Pickup Outfitters at 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
At Impact Research Institute, we can help you identify if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and measure for liver stiffness or scarring. If you or a loved one has diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, obesity, or concerns about your liver health, Impact Research Institute may be able to help by providing liver health screenings quickly at no cost, physician counseling, and opportunities to qualify for clinical trials. Visit us at impactresearchtx.com for more.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
At long last, it's time for some college football. Bird Collision Ford proudly supports the Baylor Bears as they take the field this season. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Collision Ford. We have some great vehicles available this season as well, so come check out our winning lineup of new Fords. Let's cheer the Bears on to victory and celebrate by buying a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sikkim Bears.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Grant Dideker, under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. And you have this umbrella. We mentioned the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, but you serve more than just like home insurance, or you have all sorts of different levels of different things you cover.
Yeah.
How much does that help?
I talked to a guy today. He has, Allstate on his car, Progressive boat, and, Farmers on his home. So I said, why don't you, do you know your agents? No, I just called the 800 number. Why don't you just let me quote that and we can have it all here. Makes it a lot less complicated for you. He really liked that. We have auto, home, life, several different brokerage options, classic cars. Got to ride in a 1978 Ferrari one time.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent. Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Flemister, not touched across the 20. It's a race that he'll win. Touchdown, Notre Dame.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, this 4 o'clock hour, we discussed Georgia and their matchup with Clemson. Yesterday we spotlighted Clemson. Of course, we had Baylor coach Dave Aranda for their opener coming up Saturday in San Marcos. Now joined again by Pete Sampson, covers Notre Dame for theathletic.com, has been with us before and joins us again because they have a hell of a game coming up against Florida State. Pete, it's not what Florida State's been used to, of course, but they're getting used to what it's not very good the last few years. What does Notre Dame expect from FSU and Mark Norvell another year as the head coach?
I mean, they saw him last year, so I think they sort of saw that rebuild. It's a big rebuild up close. So, I mean, there's athletic ability at quarterback. I like Jordan Travis, what he did against Notre Dame last year, but, it's like their defense was so bad, and Notre Dame was really sort of able to run at will against them that it's difficult to look at that and feel like they're going to take such a big jump from year 1 to year 2, at least in week 1. I just don't expect Florida State to have the horses necessarily to keep up out of the gate.
Pete, that game last year, I'm an FSU grad. Watching that game, I was talking to a friend of mine, and like the fact that it was like only 20 points or 24 at the end of the game was like, well, that could have been much worse. It could have been like the Clemson game was a year ago. For Notre Dame, though, how much are they really changing anything that would concern Florida State at all? Because they're probably just going to run right at them and not put too much on Jack Cohen, are they?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did put quite a bit on Jack Cohen, because Notre Dame is not built to run on Florida State like they were last year with that offensive line with 4 guys who were in NFL camps, 3 draft picks, Tommy Tremble paving the way. I mean, Notre Dame's run game is not going to be as devastating as it was last year, but they do think that at receiver they have more ability than they did last year. Their tight end will be better. Their running backs will be better. So we talked about this thing last time I was on. It's sort of a team that sort of flipped in terms of its construction for Notre Dame. Usually they're great on the line, but maybe a little bit limited at the skill positions. And this year, I think they have potential to be great at the skill positions, but a line that's going to have to grow into the season.
What have been some of the thoughts on Jack Cohen since being named the starter, just the intangibles that he brings, the style that he brings, and the belief from his teammates?
So far, they like what they've seen. He can take in a lot of offense, so I think they'll be able to be a little bit more versatile offensively. And, I mean, so much of how good or average he is at Notre Dame is going to have to do with the skill position players that he's throwing to. And he should have so much more depth than he had at Wisconsin at receiver and tight end. The running backs, not Jonathan Taylor good, but Kyron Williams is a second-team All-American. Chris Tyree is somebody that chose Notre Dame over Oklahoma and Alabama. So he's got a lot of weapons. And we asked him about the term game manager, which is how he was seen at Wisconsin, and he leaned into it. He was just like, well, that means I don't turn the ball over and I get you in good spots, and I'm okay with managing a game that way.
So, obviously, they've been able to now, Notre Dame, settle things down and be a part of the top 10, and they're a part of the what is near the elite. Obviously, I think most people think of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, or whatever. How hungry is that fan base to not Notre Dame prove who they are, but get back to a level that they haven't really tasted at the elite highest level in a long time?
I mean, starving for it. They've been close, but it's like you get close and then realize how far away you are when you run into Clemson in the playoffs with freshman Trevor Lawrence. You run into Alabama with the Heisman Trophy winner last year. So it's, in closing that gap, I don't think there's anything that's going to happen in Tallahassee that's going to convince you one way or the other that it's closing. That's a recruiting issue. So it's a hungry fan base. I also think it's, Brian Kelly's in a spot now where he sort of recaptured benefit of the doubt. So if Notre Dame goes 10-2, if they don't really challenge to make the playoff into November, I'm not saying the fan base is going to be okay with that, but they're going to feel like, all right, if some freshmen step forward, if you see some more young talent, then you can feel like the program is still headed in a good direction.
On Brian Kelly, Pete, he didn't totally change his philosophy, but he changed a lot of the ways he was doing things. That's not easy for a lot of coaches to do, especially a guy who was kind of famous for being, what he was in Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, I think he toned down himself on the sideline. And, when you talk about what's different about the program, it's that you sort of start with the head coach, even though he's the same guy in first and last name, his approach and how he deals with people is totally different. So that is very rare in the sport. I mean, you guys know, covering it down there, it's like once you're on the hot seat, the only way you get off is when you get fired. And Brian Kelly has coached himself off of the hot seat, which is pretty impressive because you just don't see coaches reinvent themselves the way that he did.
Hey, Pete, I'm curious, off the field, what has name, image, likeness been like for Notre Dame? I mean, they're obviously a unique program. And, NIL's been something that a lot of people have been trying to wrap their head around. What's it been like in South Bend?
It's been a topic of conversation, but there has not been a whole lot of action on it. Kyle Hamilton, the star safety, has made some money off of it, has had a few apparel deals, memorabilia deals. But I think for the most part, it hasn't been that different here than other places. Your offensive line gets a sponsorship deal with a local barbecue joint. The smaller, I don't want to say smaller time stuff, but, things that don't really move the needle, I think, for the fan base. They're just sort of like, oh, that's it? I heard a lot about NIL, how it was going to blow up the entire sport. And, now the starting left tackle gets free ribs. Like, that's just not that big of a deal.
We brought this up earlier. Nebraska had to buy some tickets, probably thousands of tickets, to keep their home sellout streak alive, which is some insane number. Notre Dame had one themselves that was in the nearly 300 level. I think it's 273 or so in a row. When they finally had that streak end, did anyone care?
Yeah, I mean, people cared because it was something that went in your recruiting brochures that you had sold out every game since the 70s. But, I mean, they were running into the same things that Nebraska was running into, where you're asking alums to buy the tickets. And it's like, is it a sellout, or are you just saying it's a sellout? And Notre Dame sort of viewed it as like, look, we get it. You get 80,000 people to South Bend in late November for a game against Georgia Tech or Duke or Navy is hard. They have some games at the end of the season. They sort of view it as like whenever you have 3 home games in November, selling out those 3 home games was going to be very, very difficult. And that turned out to be one of the reasons it ended. It just the scheduling broke against them in terms of home games and, just having too many tickets to sell it in cold weather in the upper Midwest.
Pete, what would have to happen this week for Florida State to win this game?
Jack Cohn would have to be really bad. I think that he would have to sort of go out and do something that he has not done all camp and really just sort of lay an egg. I think their offensive line would have to be overwhelmed by the moment. 4 new starters, 1 transfer, 1 true freshman. I think there's some opportunity for that to happen. The offensive line to play poorly, or at least play poorly in the beginning of the game. But other than that, it's difficult for me to see, other than, your classic don't turn the ball over, that kind of formula to lose. You would need to, I think that the quarterback and the offensive line play. If Notre Dame is steady at both, they don't need to be spectacular, just steady. If they're steady at both, I think that they will be able to get out of Tallahassee without too much of a scare.
Did I just see you? I did. Pete Sampson on Twitter, at Pete Sampson. The Athletic is doing the Lord's work, producing a beer guide for the college football season. Brian Hamilton wrote the story. I love it, man. It's Pete Sampson, by the way, and then _, after N. That's always, this is time of the year to kind of get a lot of those stories out, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like if you're going to go on the road for college football, let's enjoy it to the maximum.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I believe the ACC one comes out on Thursday of this week, maybe Friday, but I will be checking that out since I've got trips to Tallahassee, Charlottesville, and Blacksburg on deck coming up.
Paul, what's the score for Saturday? Was it Sunday or Monday?
Sunday. It's a Sunday game.
So what's the score?
Yeah, Sunday night.
Florida State alum here?
I would say if Florida State can keep it to like 42-24, like
you
that's
think it's
a
that
great
high
night.
scoring a game?
Oh, for Notre Dame, sure. I think Florida State can probably rattle off a couple touchdowns late. I mean, when Notre Dame quits caring,
what?
I mean,
all right.
Okay. I don't think it's going to be good. I mean, we'll see if McKenzie Milton makes a difference, Pete. But I just don't. That defense has to get. They got 2 transfers. They need about 12 more.
Yeah, I do think it's difficult for me to figure out. The Jermaine Johnson, the kid from Georgia, unless he is just unbelievable and terrorizes Notre Dame's freshman left tackle Blake Fisher. That's why I say just be steady against Florida's defensive line. That's all. If you can just do that, then I think Notre Dame will be fine. I think it'll be a little more low scoring than you think, but I think Notre Dame's offense is going to need some time to grow into it, whatever its ultimate form is this season. To see them come out and be lights out on week 1, I think is probably asking a little bit too much.
Sunday night, 6:30, ABC. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Pete Sampson covers Notre Dame with us from theathletic.com on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Yeah, nothing realignment-wise to bring up with him this time around because there's been, nothing really going on. I mean, really the Big 12 has gone behind closed doors now, and they're meeting today, obviously, and I'm sure they're talking about a lot of different things, but that's certainly got to be one of the topics, if not the topic, I would think, from that meeting, and don't know what comes out of that, but certainly if you're Notre Dame, I know they were a trendy team to start talking about, pushing them into the ACC full-time and all of that, but they're not budging. They're not going anywhere.
They're their own alliance.
Yeah,
they just are. I mean, so they don't have to worry about it until they have to worry about it. Bottom line, again, no team watches this with more giddiness than Notre Dame does because they're just like,
we're fine.
They're fine. They'll take phone calls, not make phone calls.
Right,
that's
exactly.
what they can sit there and, just wait.
They're allowed to push decline if they want to.
Yeah. I mean, look, Bob Bowlesby has to answer every call on his phone. Every one. Look, George Kliavkoff has to answer most of the calls on his phone. Kevin Warren's probably less than that, and Jim Phillips, about the same place right now. But, Jack Swarbrick, the AD at Notre Dame, he gets to make calls. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to take them. He just, hey, we'd like to play you. When? We have an opening in 2038. You down? Okay, good deal. 2038 and 2039, we're doing it.
Yeah, we'll be in the same conference, the independent conference, so to speak.
There is a ton of games on Thursday in college football. I mean, a bunch of them. I've seen some chatter on the chat room. The Ohio State, number 4 in the country, against Minnesota. That's one of the games on there. There's a few others.
It's a game tomorrow.
Charlie Brewer debuts Thursday night as quarterback at Utah against Weber State. And
well, he should play well in that game, I would think.
Boise State, UCF Thursday. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of good games that we can go over. North Carolina, Virginia Tech on Friday. But, yeah, Charlie, I'm really curious to see. This is not going to be the game where I feel like you get too much of a feel for how successful he's going to be at Utah. This should be one where he's probably, not playing too much in the second half, I would think. But who knows? We'll see. But I'm very curious, as I've said, since his departure last November, December, whenever it was, that I cannot wait to see whether or not some of the criticism leveled towards him was valid from Baylor fans, or whether it truly was basically the offensive line and the offensive coordinator spot was a complete mess last season.
That's I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. Alabama, Miami is a good one. That's on Saturday afternoon in Georgia. Indiana, Iowa, kind of an early separation game in the Big Ten for those who are a part of that conversation at the great stadium in Iowa City. Let's see here. Texas and Louisiana. I'm telling you, that's 2 top 25 teams playing at DK Royal Memorial Stadium. Earl Campbell and Ricky Williams, that'll become officially, like they're going to have a ceremony there. I think last year they kind of had one, but they're going to have another one this weekend. Earl's going to join us, in fact, next week.
I don't think that UT's necessarily on upset watch. I mean, they might be in the eyes of some people, but listening to some of Sarkisian, I think he's very well aware of who they're playing. This is not Weber State. This is not – I'll go back to – I'm just going to beat up on Furman all day. Furman, it's a team that went and popped Iowa State last year unexpectedly, right? That was last year, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so
right off the top.
Yeah, I mean, right first week. And so they're more than capable. And the Big 12 got punched in the mouth last year in that first weekend. What else? K-State lost, I believe, right? And Iowa State had the big loss. So it was not a good start for the Big 12. But, yeah, I think Texas, they still could have their hands full no matter how prepared they are. But they're not going to be caught off guard by how good Louisiana is. I think that secret's out.
No, you're right, and especially since they've had some stinkers openers with first-year coaches, Texas Tech, Houston, we mentioned
Curious
that.
to see Hudson Card and how he does and how they work the quarterbacks. If Casey Thompson gets a lot of play or if it's mostly Card.
If I was a Texas fan, I'd be worried about that right now, because it's not I'm more confident in what happened at Baylor, where Dave Aranda says it's Gary Bohannon and he's the starter, and not it's Gary Bohannon and the other guys might see some time. It's Gary Bohannon and he's the starter.
Right.
Anytime I hear this is the guy, but the other guy's going to play, and it's not some sort of specialty package, then I get concerned. I think that means that nobody has really wrapped their arms around it. And Steve Sarkisian has worked with a lot of really, really talented and times great quarterbacks in college football. And if he's the guy who's telling me right now I'm not confident, I trust him that, he's not comfortable. So
did he say he's not confident?
He's not saying, it took him this long. He's not saying it. His decision is saying it.
Oh, okay. LSU and UCLA is a game, of course, which has got some interest into it because of LSU getting displaced because of Hurricane Ida.
I haven't heard any more follow-up from Sarkisian ever since he announced Card as the starter. I mean, obviously it took him another week from when the first report was actually announced that Card would be the starter. They didn't decide that officially until days later. But, it could be a good problem. It could be that, hey, they're both neck and neck and they're both really good and we're good either way. Or it could be that they're both, pretty okay and this guy's just slightly better. So, yeah, we'll find out on Saturday. That's for sure.
Look, the icon Butch Henry once told me, if you've got two, you've got none. If you've got one, you've got one. And I think that's, for the most part, been true.
When we come back, a couple other notes. We'll get to the text line, the chat room. Also, Baylor football opens against Texas State, of course. We heard from Dave Aranda yesterday. Players available on a couple of more occasions this week. There's a couple of stories. There's one on the PGA Tour. It's not college football, but the Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka thing has reached another level, and Brooks Koepka had nothing to do with it. But something happened after that amazing playoff with Patrick Cantlay, and Bryson DeChambeau blew a fuse. And now the PGA Tour's debating on something, and it's got some players who are making comments on Twitter about a possible rule the PGA Tour will enforce when it comes to the crowd or the patrons of the gallery or whatever you want to call them. This is Sikkim 365 Radio.
If you are moving to Waco or you're trying to sell your house, buy a house in Waco, you need to call my friend Lance Donaldson, the Donaldson family team brokered by eXp Realty, 254-214-3713. Look, Lance is a local realtor with unique perspective. Great guy. You're going to have a great time looking for a house with him. And right now here in Texas and a lot of places, it's a seller's market. And if it's a seller's market, you are going to make a lot of money for the house you're selling. That's true. But what happens when you roll that into your new house? What's the best deal you can make? Well, Lance can help you do that. So look him up online, lancedonaldson.exprealty.com or 254-214-3713.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
The thing about having a naked truck is that you get exposed for the equipment you don't have. Take, for example, your rear end. If you don't have anything back there, you're exposed about what you don't have, and that's a life. However, if you cover that rear end with a hitch, you're telling the world, hey, I got a little junk in my bed, and I'm ready to pull something. A camper, RV, boat, trailer, jet skis, heck, even a bike rack. A hitch says, I have a life beyond driving my truck to and from work. And Pickup Outfitters is the place to get a hitch for your truck, SUV, van, even some cars. We sell and install just about any kind of hitch you need. Receiver hitches from light to heavyweight to pull just about anything. And gooseneck hitches and fifth wheels when you're ready to pull the heavy stuff. And don't forget trailer and brake controller wiring. It's so important to have wiring professionally and correctly installed by the pros at Pickup Outfitters. So it's time to cover that gaping hole in the rear end of your truck with a hitch. Installed by Pickup Outfitters. Check us out online at createacommotion.com.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Got a text from the 940. The text number in the callers 254-339-1122 on who to add. Brigham Young, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF. Also, Bowlesby and Oliver Luck or Oliver Luck need to strike a Big 12 SEC scheduling alliance with Commissioner Sankey. Wouldn't that be interesting?
That'd be nice. I don't think they have room unless we're going to like 18 games a year, though, because they're already adding a couple more to the mix. And, I don't think there's room for
And unlike the Big 12, the SEC allows cross-conference rivalries that they've always played every year and doesn't get in the weeds about.
Well, the Big 12 did when it mattered, when it appeased certain people. But, Craig, you want to get back to something about the Big 12 being proactive. But here's also from the 940. Go to ESPN or Fox for future TV deal with 12 teams in place. And that's going to be interesting because of the back and forth Big 12, Bowlesby, and SEC. And the scheduling alliance with the SEC. Now, instead of a Big 12 network on TV, introduce the idea of standalone, innovative Big 12 app. Now, see, this is above my pay grade, but I want to read it. The app can always be available on phones, tablets, TV, just like ESPN or YouTube. On the app, we can watch live programming, bonus content, recruiting information, pre- and post-game press conferences, maybe even a football library so the Big 12 fans can watch past games. This can have a $5 monthly subscription, be lucrative to both the Big 12, ESPN, and or Fox. A lot of, I don't know how much that would bring to the table, but I love the fact that 940, you got that specific, and we appreciate it.
Well, I mean, as far as outside the box thinking, they're not going to have a Big 12 network anytime soon, so that would be the, best way to go about doing that, to have something similar to a network, but that wouldn't be actually out over the air like the SEC network or the ACC network or the BYU network are. I think, like a vault of games and stuff, that would be kind of cool. I pass by the Longhorn Network constantly. I've never sat and just actually watched it, but they've always got, old games on and whatever. So if you had a place where you could just on demand go pull 98 A&M versus Texas, I think that'd be pretty sweet. And I would think the conference has those rights so they could still make some bread off of their former members.
I don't know, because the SEC network last year was playing an A&M game, it was a classic SEC game, and it was well before A&M was in the SEC, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how that works exactly, but, I mean, to your way of thinking as far as an app or just even anything along those lines, that's what I'm talking about, man. I'm talking about outside of the box thinking, not that that's necessarily, a brand new suggestion, because plenty of people have talked about streaming and cable and, all the various ways to watch games and stuff now, but that is the type of thing that I do think they need to be proactive in how they use technology and how they promote themselves and how, they're aired and all that stuff. Marketing. I mean, they could use help across the board, and I definitely think an app along those lines or something similar to that would be a good thing for the Big 12, and it wouldn't be a negative in any way. So, yeah, I mean, they need some people thinking that kind of up that alley, in my opinion.
All right, now the proactivity of what the Big 12 needed to be based on a text that I read before the end of the last segment, before we had our guest on the show, and Pete Sampson.
Yeah, I was asking about why should the Big 12 be proactive, and we just kind of read it and didn't really talk about it. I think they've got to be proactive because it's the exact opposite of what they've been now for basically their entire existence. I mean, we've seen what not being proactive does. We've seen what being reactive does. It has you on your heels scrambling backwards as your two bell cows are leaving the conference for enemy territory. That's what not being active got you. And just thinking, oh, no, everything's cool, everything's great. You know what? I think with the SEC, and I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine even when they're raking in record profits and record All-Americans and record championships, I bet Greg Sankey is still sitting there going, how can we be better? What can we do? What can we do next? And to me, there was this sense of contentment at Big 12 Media Days with everybody. It was just even if everything's okay, it's still not okay. It's still a conference that's fallen to the wayside in terms of, exposure and just money allotment and all of that. And they weren't at the very bottom, but now it feels like they're at the very bottom. So I just think being proactive is the opposite of what you've done, and we see where what they've done's taken them. And I think, too, that if you sit on your hands with this, that you don't know that a Pac-12 doesn't come in at some point before you're like, I mean, depending on how long you plan on taking with this thing, you can't afford to, do 2 years, 3 years from now, because I feel like so much could change that all of a sudden UCF is an apple in the eye of someone else who's looking at, you know what, maybe we should add a couple more teams. I just don't think you want to be left out in the cold. And by doing nothing, I think you leave yourself out in the cold. That's why I say you got to be proactive. That doesn't mean announcing next week somebody's in the conference, but because of the buyouts, because of the amount of time it will take to translate, your schedules and your affiliations and all of that, you kind of do have to do it relatively somewhat soon. You can't really afford to make this like a 5 or 6 year process to announce nothing or something. It's got to be, I would think, relatively in the near future.
I think they have to have something that they put out there that's positive, that is also basically all but official by sometime the middle, late October. That's me.
I think that,
I don't know why I picked that date. That's just me.
No, I think they've got 4 to 6 weeks to figure it out. I mean, because they've had, look, at least give them a little bit of a grace period in the fact that, Big 12 Media Days, like Craig said, everything was hunky damn dory. I mean,
we should have known.
Yeah,
we should have
just
known.
like, hey, expansion's unnecessary. 12-team playoff. Unity.
One true champion.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Look, there's Lincoln Riley and Steve Sarkisian. Aren't we lucky to have those guys? Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. And then a week later, it's like, what? What do you mean? So they got blindsided. So let them get over the shock of it and deal with the immediate ramifications. And then post that, now start moving forward. Deal with the immediacy of calling the Pac-12, Big Ten, and ACC, trying to get in the scheduling alliance, being told no. Okay, that happened. All right, so what do you do now? You start looking at expansion, and you don't just, listen. The last people they should listen to are people like us. I mean, we don't really know anything. I mean, I say that, but I mean, we're not, experts.
We're not decision makers.
Yeah, decision makers. So
Madden DC, spot on, Craig. We have to be like Saban, who was watching game film for next year on the flight back from a national title win.
Yeah.
Big 12 needs to be getting better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see them get better. I want to see them have a message, have an identity, have some gumption behind what they're saying and what they believe. And there's been, really little to none of that. No identity even for the most part. I mean, the identity of the Big 12 the last few years has been Oklahoma wins it every year, but they're not good enough to win a national title. Texas is down, up, down, up. And then, those are the only two schools that most people really talk about. There's the occasional, oh, hey, good run by Baylor 3 years ago, or Iowa State last couple years. But, for the most part, it's pretty clear how they're viewed, right? So I just think that you gotta own who you are and own who you're going to be and know who that is and what that's going to be like. And again, I just keep preaching, think outside the box and be innovative and maybe launch a network app since you can't get an over-the-air network or just do things like that. But, there's plenty of room for them to grow and get better, but they do have to figure out the expansion side first, because the last thing that they can afford, or any of these schools will afford, is to do what they did the last time around. I mean, if they did that and 4 weeks from now they announce, oh, well, we're just going to stay at 10, or 8. Well, that's, how that will go over. So, yeah, I do think they need to be proactive for the last 5 minutes of what we said.
Turd meat punch bowl. That's what that would be.
I've ruined your off the radar all day. Do you have anything about Bryson DeChambeau?
No.
Okay, well, you'll like this one. And maybe, I don't know.
This is the horns down of the PGA now.
No, it is. But after the playoff loss, which was excruciating, I'm sure, for Bryson DeChambeau and Armstrong Sims. So DeChambeau,
he loves Bryson.
I don't even know if he, may have been a quick handshake. I'm sure he was devastated. Should have been. He had 5 or 6 different times he could have closed it out, and he also himself saved his butt on a couple of times in the playoff. But so he's walking up the hill, miserable, obviously upset because he just blew that thing 4 or 5 times in the BMW Championship. Halfway up the hill, something happened. One of his patrons, fan, within earshot, great job, Brooksy, to DeChambeau, who spun around in a rage and began to briefly walk into the direction of the fan. You know what he said? Get the F out. Had rage in his eyes. It didn't turn ugly. It was not malice at the palace. DeChambeau obviously stopped and paused. He got a security cop to come over and handle the heckler. It took about 10 seconds. PGA Tour did not decline. And now I've seen with players on tour talking about all the things they've been called, and that there is a chance the PGA Tour honestly is looking at possibly canceling out the term Brooksy.
I mean, come on, Brooke. I'm sorry, Bryson. I mean, come on, Bryson.
I'm not sure if Bryson had anything to do with that, but
I know what they're trying to do. Golf is a sport that doesn't, traffic and trash talk. I mean, it's not what they do. It doesn't do that from the fans. Now, this is because of the reason the guy said that is it's gone viral. There's a video. He was playing and somebody said, "Good job, Brooksy," in that video. And then Bryson turned around and said, "Don't call me Brooksy." And so people now know that it bothers him.
Got under his skin.
Under his skin.
What do you think NBA players hear at courtside? What do you think baseball players hear chatter in the stands?
And this is what Bryson DeChambeau's flaw is. His game is pretty darn good, but when he gets in his head, which is very easy for him to do, he loses his mind. And he can't compete, he can't focus, and he can't win. And so he's got to get control of that. And, making a rule to not say Brooksy, you're going to get kicked out, seems to only benefit certain players. Look, what did Tiger put up with? God. What did Tiger put up with for years?
Distractions. And then when his life became public for the last decade, what he then was put up with and also wasn't playing well.
So Bryson DeChambeau doesn't want to hear Brooksy. I'm sorry, Bryson. Quit being a baby.
Yeah.
I think the biggest baby quote in this whole thing, and it wasn't really this guy sounding like a baby, but it just makes everything sound so absolutely soft. Commissioner Jay Monahan, now I would ask our fans again, the very best fans in the world, to take a moment and think about what it means to be a golf fan and to enjoy a PGA Tour tournament. We're going to be leaders in this space. We're going to show everyone how easy it is to enjoy yourself at an event while also respecting the athletes in the field of play and the fans around you, many of whom are families with young kids who have a chance to be lifetime fans of the game themselves. It sounds so boring and dull. I mean, honestly, dude, I get it, the families and making fans and all of that, but I think the rivalry can kind of get a little bit too silly sometimes. I think it kind of takes away from the game itself.
It's gotten a little bit much now.
And I think they're both kind of D-bags in their own way. I know Koepka's probably far more popular, but he's not acted like Mr. Cool the entire time either.
He's fed the fire. He's fueled the fire.
For sure. They've both been D-bags.
With a couple of tweets and stuff.
I mean, they've both been pouring gasoline on it. But, the whole – facing expulsion if you're a fan for yelling Brooksy, or we're worried about families and making new fans, that turns me away from it entirely.
And again,
honestly,
there are many other golfers who have gone through much worse than that.
But Steve Stricker's the Ryder Cup captain, right?
Yeah.
He said he had spoken to both of them. So listen to Koepka. So Koepka, after the opening round last week, the BMW Championship, acknowledged that he had spoken to Stricker. No issue dialing back whatever their feud has evolved. But listen to this quote. I talked to Strick, and he said they don't want it. I told him that's easy at us. For 1 week, we'll put everything aside. It's not a big deal. For 1 week.
Well,
for America.
Ask Patrick Reed's wife how well that goes for a week.
Yeah.
When she blew it up when they were in Europe a couple years
ago.
So
that's getting interesting. And so what if they're in the same group? And Koepka and DeChambeau are in the same group pairing. They won't be paired together in the Ryder Cup. That would be a disaster. And a fan yells out Brooksy, which he has every right to do. So that'll be interesting.
I don't know. And at the same time, too, I also think it's kind of D-bag on the part of fans to keep, but again, he's just going to lead to more people doing it. That's all he did was that's all Bryson did was just make it more of a focal point for people.
Look, if you were a kid and something embarrassing happened to you and then they started calling you a nickname forever, the way to get rid of the nickname is to lean into it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The only way to make it stop is to lean into it. You either wind up having that nickname for life and you don't care, or the people who are calling you that nickname go, well, it's not working. We just going to let it go.
Yeah.
Koepka has made it clear that golf is not a team sport. It's an individual sport, although the Ryder Cup for a European team is absolutely as close as a team as they could ever be. To be honest with you, you play a team thing for 1 week. To be honest, it's more fun week than anything. Nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But that was just something that's off, different than what we talk about most every day with this college football, pro and high school football as well. Coming up next, Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Sikkim 365 Radio. Marco's Pizza. The secret to living your best life is pizza. That's obvious because, man, who doesn't like a great warm or maybe even the next day after pizza? Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, toppings, crispy old world pepperoni, savory Italian sausage. And whenever we order Marco's Pizza, I always ask for additional Italian sausage if we get the all-meat pizza. There's bacon as well. That's called a Dream Team Pizza. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001. Proud owner of 4 locations, Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and also Robinson's about to open as well. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
The Labor Day sales event is going on now at Allen Samuels with the new 2021 Ram 1500 Quad Cab Lone Star. Pick out the 1500 Lone Star Quad Crew Cab, which offers style and dependability for any job. Come see this incredible full-size pickup truck today. It's the Labor Day sales event going on now at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Baylor University, students can shine in their own way. Or should we say their own ways? Because there's no limit to the ways Baylor students make the world a brighter place. Whether they're leading a student organization or following a higher calling, getting advice from faculty, or taking part in world-class research, pursuing their dreams, or working toward their dream job, students find their place to shine at Baylor, where lights shine bright.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar. Taking a look at some various sports stories that are going on that are a little bit off the radar. Get this music down here in just a second so we can get into some of these stories. All right, let's start off with Bishop Sycamore.
Hell of a school, great program on ESPN,
man.
national brand.
Fantastic. Well, Bishop Sycamore is the fake team, the fake program, and the fake school that was able to appear on national television a couple of days ago. Played 2 games in 3 days, got whooped in both of them. You saw players sharing helmets. You saw the ESPN broadcast crew actually on the broadcast talk about the fact that they were unable to find any recruiting information on all these players, despite the fact that Bishop Sycamore had said they had several Division I talents. I mean, the ESPN broadcast itself was calling out the weirdness of this whole situation during the actual game. Well, now this has continued to just, build steam, gain steam. You find out the head coach has a warrant that's active. You find out like half the team are JUCO guys that are just pretending to be in high school. I mean, that's all insane enough on its own. But they were scheduled to play again this weekend, and their upcoming opponent, Johnson Central, has announced that they will no longer be playing vaunted Bishop Sycamore. And they were also scheduled to play Texas powerhouse Duncanville. And Duncanville has now announced, despite the last 24 hours saying, no, the game's still on, Duncanville has finally announced that their game on September 10th against Bishop Sycamore has been canceled by Duncanville after the fallout from Sycamore duping ESPN to get on national TV. That were the exact words from the Dallas Morning News. And the Ohio governor has now announced that he has asked the Ohio Board of Education to conduct an investigation into Bishop Sycamore to ensure compliance with Ohio law and to ensure the school is providing the educational opportunities Ohio students deserve. So 2 upcoming games canceled, including one against national powerhouse Duncanville, which is a Texas blue blood. And now the governor is going to go to the Board of Education to look into this whole thing.
Yeah, well, they played 2 games in a week.
In 3 days, I think it was.
Yeah, in 3 days. The same quarterback played twice in spite of Bishop Sycamore claiming that they have 2 rosters like IMG. Basically, this Bishop Sycamore guy is trying to pretend like he's the North version of IMG Academy.
Yes.
I think that's what he's trying to do. And what he has on his team apparently are a bunch of JUCO dropouts.
Yeah.
And I was talking this with J.D. Piquel last night, and Armstrong was here. There was a guy in my high school who he was like 3 years ahead of me. And then for all the 3 years I was in high school after he graduated, the dude would literally come and hang out in the parking lot after school every day. And it was, I thought, the saddest thing I'd ever seen in my life. That has now been surpassed by guys trying to play high school football while they're after high school. And not only that, getting their asses absolutely handed to them by a team full of all the best players you want in the country. Yeah. Like a team that's literally recruited and built and can't play for state championships, that's just a factory for D1 colleges.
It's bizarre. Like, I don't know what the point of this is. Like, what is the point of the school? These guys aren't
someone getting their rocks off.
Yeah.
Somebody getting a feel good, but it always ends poorly. It always ends poorly. And I'm using a couple of examples. Remember, Texas had a player, football team, University of Texas, and this guy ended up being, what was he, like 30 or something?
Yeah.
Not one of those that came back, like a guy that it was a weird story. Like, there's just...
Yeah, you don't remember that, Craig? The guy, he was back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. This guy created a fake identity and came back and played for Texas, and he was 31 years old and completely out of eligibility.
And it wasn't that he had, like, served overseas or had played minor league baseball. I don't remember that for some reason,
Yeah, he was, like, 31 years old, and he came back and played. He gave him a fake name but walked on and played. Ron Weaver. Yeah.
Okay.
Ron Weaver.
The Great Imposter. Okay, I don't remember that at all for some reason. I'm going to
send you a link
read
to
that.
This.
But, I mean, you got a bunch of Ron Weavers out there. I mean, I'll tell you what, if they'd have thrown Wooderson in there at quarterback, I might have watched that. It's the old Matthew McConaughey. I mean, that's the guys you're talking about is the Woodersons. That's basically they've got Woodersons playing high school football. But, now their upcoming 2 games have been canceled. And, now they're going to be, having the state's going to be looking into them. So we'll see where it goes from here for Bishop Sycamore. But it's not looking great.
I sent Reggie Samples, the head coach, the great head coach at Duncanville. Are you still going to play them? I never heard from him because he was probably on the phone trying to figure out with his AD, what are we going to do?
No kidding. I mean, and, ESPN just looks ridiculous in this whole thing. I can only imagine the conversations they've had behind the scenes about protocols and checklists and verifying. And, I mean, they got the wool pulled totally over their eyes on this deal.
Tom Lungenbill said it during the broadcast, is they were supposed to have a conference call with the team on Thursday of the week or Wednesday, whenever they were, and Bishop Sycamore just didn't show up and sent them an email.
Yeah, they were just riffing on them at points during that game where it was just obvious that that something was just very fishy about this. So we'll see what happens. I can't even recall a story even close. I mean, you just gave me the example of a player doing this, but as far as a fake high school, a fake football team, of JUCOs playing high school ball, JUCOs who are trying to pretend like they're recruits, but when they actually were recruits, had zero offers across the board, basically.
We are seeing more and more ever since,
nuts.
and it's not so much like this, but Danny Almonte, was that the pitcher?
Yes, yeah.
There was the girl that did not run the full Boston Marathon or whatever, maybe in New York, whatever, snuck in the last 300 yards and acted like she won. I mean, it's just everything. Reality shows have created people wanting instant, not gratification. Well, maybe it is, but notoriety, no matter if it makes them look foolish or like idiots or not. It just happens all of the time.
There's some that believe the boomer generation, and I know they're easy pickings and people love to pick on them, but the parenting maybe went a little bit differently as far as having more self-interest and things like that, and you left kids to where they're more playing video games, entertaining themselves on their own or whatever, basically leading to a craving for attention.
Yeah.
And I do sense in the younger generation, I think if you talk to people who are 90, that they felt like when they were 40, kids who were 20 were attention seekers and whatever. But I think now with social media and just, that aspect of it, that there is this crave for attention, but it's not just younger people, it's older people too.
It's everybody.
It's insane how much people need attention. It's just bizarre, but yeah, they're getting the attention now, Bishop Sycamore, and they're going to get a lot more because I don't know when a high school story period has trended as much as this one has, and there's so many layers to it. It's just incredible. So a little bit of an update with NFL cuts. I wanted to be able to put together a list of Big 12 standouts that maybe didn't make it, but I just didn't have enough time to. But I will update you on Baylor players and cuts today.
Hold on, one more thing about what you were mentioning, just about that weirdness. Robert Spradley, I remember this story. The kid who signed to play at Cal over Oregon,
I remember that,
and had no offer from either program.
And he had a full signing press conference with the students there, with the teacher. I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
And he went through the whole thing until they found out. And I don't remember hearing anything about him after that. I'm sure he went into hiding a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an attention thing, 100%.
Well, and the one I question the most in that is, I know there are coaches out there who don't really help their players get recruited all that much, but they at least know.
You don't know that Cal is trying to sign your guy.
Cal or Oregon is going to try to sign your guy? Come on.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So NFL cuts wise, here are some names who are no longer on active NFL rosters. Philly cut Philly cut Graylin Arnold.
Former Baylor, good hell of a player.
And he's been bouncing up and down. He'll probably end up back on their practice squad or something.
Or maybe with Charlotte or in.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Washington football team cut William Bradley King.
Former Baylor defensive end. Arkansas State, really.
Was their only draft pick last year, but yeah, he was mostly an Arkansas State guy.
I never thought he would make it, but good luck to him.
Panthers, this had to be tough for Matt Rule. Sam Tecklenburg, no longer on the roster.
Ouch! Yeah, because he brought him out of kind of retirement to, hey, come over. And he had Tech had a pretty good run of about a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him to have that opportunity. He could always say he was a part of the league.
Yeah, he played in the NFL, and it was a part of a team for a whole year. And I don't think there was a ton of people that really thought that was probably in store for him until Rule came in and gave him that opportunity. So he made it probably longer than you would have expected.
And he's still practice squad eligible. So they could bring him back. And read an article, from one of the, beat writers. I like to read every different 53 cuts because I like to follow the guys that we know. And Tech was, if they keep 11 offensive linemen instead of 10, then it'd be Sam Tecklenburg, which leads me to believe that he'll probably be on their practice squad.
Probably be on their practice squad. I'm sure that was still a tough conversation for Rule to have, though, because that's a guy, that's the catch-22 of when you're in the NFL now and you've got guys that played for you in college to have to make that call on, whether or not they make the team.
I don't think he'll mind me sharing this note about Rule and NFL coaches, but I got a football in the mail from him on Friday. I didn't get it till I got home after our game in Austin. And I texted him. I said, thank you, took a picture. I sent it to him. He said, keep grinding. And I didn't hear from him for like 2 days. But this was the last week of the preseason. Of course, they're making cuts. And he sent me a text last night. He goes, we are wall-to-wall, hour around the clock right now.
Oh, I'm sure.
That is such a tough time right now. Although when you're making that kind of money, it's not too tough. But it is grind time, no question.
Jake Burton, who was a UCLA transfer to Baylor, he got cut by the Giants as well. So those were the handful of guys that all got cut today. But Kyle Fuller still with the Seahawks. Henry Black still with the Packers.
Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's had an amazing run. You mentioned JaMychal Hasty earlier with the 49ers. Andrew Billings sticks with the Browns. Blake Lynch sticks with the Vikings. And Jalen Hurd makes the 49ers 53.
Now, see, I didn't think he would because he just hadn't played a lot. But he played this past weekend. We saw a lot of highlights with Hasty, but good for Jalen Hurd. I always think he's gifted, very gifted, hell of a player in Tennessee, and then, of course, he left. And then was really good for Baylor that 1 year with Matt Rule.
Yeah, and this was one of the funnier or more interesting stories a couple of weeks back when South Carolina had the situation at quarterback where all of a sudden they were calling upon their grad assistant, Zeb Nolan, to come, play quarterback for the team. Well, he's going to be their starter this weekend.
Wow.
He's going to be the starter against Eastern Illinois. They announced that today. Luke Doty injured his left foot in the preseason, and he had been, the expected starter. He's close to 100% according to Beamer, but that's probably going to be more for next week against East Carolina. So, yeah, Zeb Nolan goes from grad assistant to all of a sudden starting quarterback week 1 for South Carolina. That's pretty cool.
Good for him.
Yeah,
good for him. That's
absolutely.
a great story.
That's awesome. So, let me see. I think I had one more thing here that I wanted to pass along, and this was from actually a little while ago. But there was I always bring up trading cards, and we made mention last week about the Topps run ending for Major League Baseball, and now Fanatics is scooping up everything. This is actually a couple weeks old, but I thought this was a really cool idea. There was a card that hit auction with 8 signatures on it, and what was really neat about this is it's not like 8 NFL stars or 8 MLB stars. It was autographs from Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, Errol Spence Jr., Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Chloe Kim. It was from Leaf Trading Cards, the only one of its kind ever created, and it was expected to sell here soon for $20,000, but I don't know how they came up with the idea of let's just slap together a bunch of different people from different sports, but that's a pretty salty list of people to have autographed card front and back of all those personalities. That's pretty sweet, and actually I think 20 is kind of a low ball for that one there. But there's a little trading card because I try to include that whenever there's something of interest. It was apparently given an 8 grade by Beckett. A perfect 10 has the sharp corners for the card traders out there. But, yeah, those are a few things that are off the radar.
I ruined most of it. You still had tons of stories. When we come back, David Hellman on the Cowboys Cuts from DallasCowboys.com. NFL Hall of Fame writer John McClain, 5:30. Paul's Top 5 in an hour. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio. We'll have Dr. Gunn in studio on Thursday to talk more about what she does at Impact Research Institute. And what they do, what she does, is try to make sure that they have a FibroScan, a small ultrasound device, and they give you the opportunity, if you call up their business, Impact Research Institute, they're trying to find those of you who have fatty liver disease. I went and took the sonogram, so to speak, or the ultrasound, excuse me, at Ideal MRI, which is one of our great sponsors, a title sponsor. And I went in there, I was like, I'm hoping I'm okay, healthy, whatever. And there was nothing wrong. Dr. Gunn called me and said everything looked fine. Well, then I was talking to somebody today. In fact, he's a high school football coach, and he said, man, they want me to go in there and have all this done, my liver's all. And I said, you need to go to Impact Research Institute. Here's what they do. They try to, you might have diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, or cholesterol. That is something to be worried about in any way, but it also can lead to extra non-alcoholic fatty liver. But it's not just that. And so what they're trying to do is detect potential problems with what they can do at Impact Research Institute. Dr. Gunn, medical director and president, gastroenterologist and hepatologist who can focus mainly on finding therapies for liver-related illnesses and disease. Direct counseling with a physician or licensed provider, opportunity to participate in a clinical trial with compensation if you qualify, and even sophisticated diagnostic imaging and assessments at no charge. Impact Research Institute on Fish Pond Road in Waco.
It's time for some high school football. Berg Colgin Ford proudly celebrates the Panthers, Cadets, Lions, and all the Central Texas football teams as they march their way through the season and down the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgin Ford. We'd love to show you our Broncos, Raptors, and Mustangs. These vehicles are winners with their sporty options and designs. Nominate who you think deserves the Built Ford Tough Player of the Week at FordPlayerOfTheWeek.com. Visit us anytime at BKFord.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of DallasCowboys.com.
Here is Pollard all the way in for 6.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, this 5 o'clock hour, David Hellman joins us, DallasCowboys.com, team cutting their rosters, the official 53, and of course it'll be changed quite a bit over the next few days and eventually throughout the year. David, was there anything in particular? I know there was talk about who the backup would be at quarterback, and of course that's important. It's like the vice president. But anything in particular, somebody who didn't or did make it that caught you by surprise or surprised you?
To be really honest with you, not really. I think this is about as straightforward a year as I can remember, where it seemed pretty obvious. I mean, maybe some quibbles here and there with some of the down the roster guys. Simi Fehoko, the rookie receiver, he made it. A couple of the young defensive linemen. But then, as you mentioned, I mean, I think there's as many as 10 more roster moves coming with everything that they still need to do. They've got about 6 guys that they want to place on IR. They'll be able to do that tomorrow after they've been on the team for a day. There's 4 or 5 guys coming back from the COVID list. So really, this is a rough draft, basically. I think the roster is going to change quite a bit. And, with all of that in mind, I think it's pretty straightforward right now.
Yeah, I would think, David, the only 2 players that I was a little bit surprised about, and one was Garrett Gilbert losing to Cooper Rush, just because we kind of assumed that Garrett Gilbert was ahead of him early in camp, but that clearly flipped, but there wasn't much separation. And then Darian Thompson, who was so good on special teams for them. But again, if you like your younger guys better than him, why not give the younger guys a shot?
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on with that. The Gilbert one is definitely surprising for me, but I think, the writing kind of started to show up on the wall there the last week with giving Cooper Rush the starter reps. And then at the end of the day, I've said I probably would have kept Garrett Gilbert, but I mean, I think we're splitting hairs when we're talking about these 2 guys' resumes. I don't think you feel particularly good about either one of them being your backup. So, if they like Cooper more than Garrett, good on them. Darian is interesting, though, because, we know that special teams coaches have a lot of sway. They have a habit of really getting to keep their guys. But then, you look at the roster, C.J. Goodwin's still here. He's your special teams ace. You keep guys like Dorrance Armstrong and Luke Gifford who can help out as well. I wonder if Mike McCarthy was kind of like, all right, guys, like how many special teams guys do we need? And I think Darian might have been the odd man out because of that. I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up on the practice squad, though.
David, who all will be coming back from that reserve COVID-19 list? There's CeeDee Lamb, there's Connor Williams, there's Noah Brown, DeMonte KZ. Is there somebody I'm missing or anybody else?
Connor Williams, I don't remember if you said that. And then Carlos Watkins, the veteran defensive tackle, are both there. And Noah Brown just got added to the list in the last day or two, so he should be down for a little bit. But the rest of those guys, I would imagine, can come back as early as this week. And I definitely think that was a little bit intentional on the Cowboys' part. Those guys don't count toward your roster limit, so that gives you some room to finagle all the other roster spots without those guys counting against it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big jigsaw puzzle that they're kind of working through right now.
Does that basically mean, like, because those are 5 guys and there's 6 guys they want to put on IR, they can put those 6 guys on IR, bring the other 5 guys back, and then re-sign Jake McQuaid? Is that the 6-for-6 deal right there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, McQuaid is, they did this with Joe Thomas last year. It's purely ceremonial. You typically come to an understanding with a guy like that where you say, hey, we're going to cut you for 24 hours. We'll make an arrangement with you, and you'll be back on the team in time for meetings later this week. And that allows you, and again, you want to do that with a vested veteran. If you have 4 years of accrued experience, you don't go through the waiver system. Whereas, if they were to cut a Simi Fehoko or a Bradley and those guys become subject to waivers where every other team in the league has a shot to take them from you. So it's just a little accounting trick that helps you cut your roster down without exposing your developmental players.
What are your thoughts about a couple of the other moves around the league with Cam Newton and perhaps a couple of other things that went down?
Yeah, I mean, Cam was the really surprising one, but then you think about it, and, I don't cover New England, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but, for starters, if the battle really is that close, and it certainly seems from a distance like Mac Jones was pretty good in training camp, you probably don't want a former NFL MVP breathing down your rookie's neck while he's trying to do his job. I don't know if that's conducive to his success, knowing that he's one bad quarter away from having a guy like Cam Newton come in. And then if you really like Cam Newton, which Bill Belichick seems to, you probably want to do him the favor of not subjecting him to being stuck as somebody's backup and go give him a chance to find a better option. And I'm sure, if I had to guess, I'm sure his vaccination status played into all of it as well. But, it's surprising on the surface when you hear that a former NFL MVP gets released, but when you kind of start thinking about it, you're like, yeah, this is probably mutually best for everybody. Like I said, the Patriots don't want him in Mac Jones's way, and Cam would probably rather seek out a better opportunity.
David, back to vaccination statuses for a minute. I mean, Cam's little suspension cost him reps in practice, and you see what happened with the Vikings. Jerry Jones, very adamant that he wants the team to be at 100% vaccinations if he can help that. They were at 93%. I think that's what he said in his radio hit last week. Do you see that number going up, obviously, with guys getting cut today?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, I don't know. I think, you kind of hear through the grapevine, you have a good idea of who's vaccinated and who's not, especially, when you see who's wearing masks on the sideline and who's not, but that's not exactly a scientific method of determining it. And I do wonder, I said this on Twitter earlier today, is if you're not vaccinated by now, it's probably because you have a pretty high level of confidence in your ability giving you job security. If you're a guy that can be cut without really thinking about it, it's probably not in your best interest to not get vaccinated. But, star quarterbacks and star pass rushers, if you're bound and determined not to do it, the team's probably not going to cut you anyway. So I wonder if we're maybe, and I like I said, I don't know this in regard to the Cowboys, but I wonder if maybe we're going to see the number go down because there's probably at least a handful of guys on some of these rosters that don't want to get vaccinated and are too good to cut.
David Hellman, DallasCowboys.com. So now let's get to the nuts and bolts of this. They have a week and a half or whatever it is to get themselves ready for their opening game against Tampa Bay. David, what is, in your opinion, the ceiling of this team, and what is the bottom of this team as far as wins and losses, 17 games? I know that's kind of boring, but just kind of a feel from you.
I mean, I don't even necessarily think it's boring, and I'm not trying to be a wuss and not take a side, but last year demonstrated to me how impossible that really is, because I've never felt as good about a team, really, just in terms of the talent that I thought they had than last year. I thought the Cowboys were a 12 or 13 win team last year, and obviously they were very far from that. And, going back a few years, some of the teams that I've had the lowest expectations for have been the best. So, shoot, if they're down 2 tackles a month into the season and lose Dak Prescott, they could be pretty terrible. If everybody's healthy, I certainly think this is a team that should win its division. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. I think Tampa Bay, Green Bay, and maybe the Rams are all a step above them. Probably throw the Seahawks in there as well. Shoot, maybe even the 49ers. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they are an elite NFC team, but I think they're probably good enough to win 10 or more games if they catch the right breaks. And, yeah, if they stay healthy, I think they should get to host a playoff game. And from there, who knows?
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
They're no Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah, they're not Bishop Sycamore.
No,
they're real. They're a real team.
Thank God for Bishop Sycamore, though.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man.
And
David, if somebody called you up and said, I'd like you to play high school football right now, we think we can pass you off, what would you tell them?
I promise you can't. Hell, especially, I mean, if you want me to play IMG, which is basically a feeder school for the elite college football programs, no way in hell would I do that. I got better things to do than get myself killed.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. David Hellman, DallasCowboys.com, with us on Tuesdays in the 5 o'clock hour.
Greatest, worst story ever. I mean, just everybody's laughing. It's brought people together to just laugh at Bishop Sycamore. And, I'd feel sorry for the kids, too, but, they're junior college age, and they're pretending to be in high school, so I can't even really feel bad for the kids, because it's not like they're super young and impressionable and don't know any better.
Yeah. And look, I'll never feel bad for IMG Academy for any reason at all, but you do kind of have to feel bad that they have this plan to try to get better and get their kids better and see that. And that game did nothing for them. No. You know, like those guys are going to that school because they want to play against good talent so that they're more ready to play in the SEC or the Big Ten or wherever they're going to school. And then that happens. So I do kind of feel bad in that regard, but they've got 9 other games, so that'll happen.
So when I was doing Off the Radar, I had a bunch of just different little bullet points on them. Did I mention that the coach has been fired as well?
No.
I didn't mention that? Okay.
No.
But yeah, apparently the Bishop Sycamore coach was also fired. I must have skipped over that one. And that's why, looking back over it, I was like, I don't feel like I said that. But yeah, apparently he was fired. But it was really funny because somebody said, well, who fired him? Like, is there a principal even? Like, is there even somebody to fire the guy? So, yeah, man, that's going to make a great documentary for, like, Amazon or Netflix or 30 for 30 for ESPN one day. It's got to be.
Yeah. Netflix has this series called Untold, which the first one was fantastic. It was about
our test, right?
About the mouse at the palace. It was very interesting. A lot of things that people didn't realize in that. And hearing Jermaine O'Neal and Ron Artest, or Meta World Peace now, like go into that and talk about like what was really going on was really interesting to me. The second one was about Christy Martin, the female boxer who was such a big thing. Story, it was really.
Her husband was the biggest piece of garbage.
Yeah. It was really, and I didn't know that story, and it was really good. The next one, and mind you, the series is called Untold, is about Caitlyn Jenner, and no offense to her, but I really don't feel like any of that is untold.
I think I
know all of it.
Yeah. And even if you didn't want to, you somehow still heard about it because it was so talked about. I did find like there were so many funny tweets that came out of Bishop. I'll have to check that out. Not so much the last one you mentioned, but yeah, I know that Christy Martin story. I've seen something on that before. That's wild. But there's been a lot of funny tweets come out of this whole thing, and one of the ones that I saw earlier was somebody posted like director of admissions Sycamore or Bishop Sycamore, and it was a picture of Lori Loughlin because of the whole admissions scandal a year ago. And yeah, people are having fun with it, but man, what a wild story.
All right, it's 5:20. We have 40 minutes to go. We'll hear from John McClain, Pro Football Hall of Fame writer, Paul's Top 5. We have SMU starting quarterback Tanner Mordecai that we're going to interview. We're going to interview him after the show for tomorrow's show. He was named, as we mentioned yesterday, the starter at SMU. We're going to grab an interview with him today, have that for tomorrow. And, oh, my goodness, Dave Wilson of ESPN, the University of Texas, of course. We're going to have that field. They already have announced all that with Ricky Williams and Earl Campbell, but they're going to have even more of a celebration again this weekend at DK Royal Memorial Stadium. He's going to join us. Earl's going to be a part of the show. I mentioned that earlier, early next week as well, along with much more to get to. All right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have actual games to talk about. It's only Tuesday, so I don't really feel like it's like let's get into the Big 12 schedule right now, but definitely need to do that soon.
Yeah, and by the way, tomorrow night you can watch the big one too. And we get into JD and I get into the Big 12 schedule quite a bit. So
cool deal.
Well, that's why it's called the big one too, right?
It is. We have an obligatory realignment segment. I feel we have to talk about it when there's news. But now that there's games, maybe we can kind of shave that down. People will start talking about, football.
There's 4 Central Texas high school football players who are playing at Texas State who Baylor plays on Saturday. We'll come back with that, plus a few more things. John McClain, again, Pro Football Hall of Famer. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio, also 365 Sports on YouTube. Armstrong Sims today runs the mothership. Long day for Armstrong and Jack McKenzie, of course, here as well. So, the NFL, was there anything other than the Cam Newton? Was there another cut that was that kind of got some splash today? I didn't see much.
The two biggest names that were cut were Cam Newton and Devontae Freeman, both who were cut last year.
Former Florida State star.
But he's on his 3rd team now, Devontae Freeman, or 4th. So that's not as big of a deal. But I would.
I mean, and the Cam thing is really just because of his name. It's not because of his play. It'd be one thing if he was playing really well and you're like, oh, man, I can't believe they'd cut him. He's a really good player. But, like, guys, the Cam Magic's been gone for, like, 3 years. I mean, ever since the Super Bowl, it's basically been gone. Matt Rule gets there. What's one of the first things he does? Cam Newton's gone, right? And you saw Teddy Bridgewater last year. He wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire. But, Cam goes to New England, and he was fine. But, I think they just really like Mac Jones, and yeah, I guess it's surprising, but as far as on the field stuff goes, I don't think it should come as too much of a surprise. I think we're just shocked because his name is Cam Newton, and we think of him in some extra type of way because of what he'd accomplished previously. But yeah, his NFL days were starting to get a little numbered.
I would say this: big names also cut today, or former first-round picks cut today, both by the Jaguars. Wide receiver Laquan Treadwell, who's never done anything in the NFL, and Philip Dorsett, who was from Miami, who was with the Colts and the Patriots. He's been
around a while.
Been around a little bit, yeah.
Here's an interesting note about today's cuts. Now that we're talking about
though, Treadwell, like you talk about one of the most overhyped dudes ever.
Wide receiver,
Going back to his recruiting days, and I know he had some moments, but he's definitely one of those names when I hear him 20 years from now, and it's a long list at this point, but I'm going to go man, I remember how bad he was supposed to be or how good he was supposed to be and just didn't quite live up to it.
Now, I mentioned earlier and took Craig's one of his off-the-radar stories about Quinn Ewers who signed a 3-year, $1.4 million deal with a trading card company. An autograph card company. This is a good note from Ben Baby that there's some things that Ben has mentioned that I haven't always agreed with, but we know him. He covers the Bengals now. Looking at some of the names cut today makes me really happy about the NIL laws in college. For some guys, their highest earning power will be as college stars. Glad they can legally capitalize on that now. I never thought of it that way.
Well, yeah, it's not for some guys. It's for the majority of guys, though. Yeah, I mean, there's thousands of players, but yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, that's certainly a positive way to look at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, who knows if Quinn Ewers will even be Ohio State's starting quarterback 3 years from now, much less play in the NFL. Remember how good Josh Rosen was supposed to be, people? Yeah. Remember how great he was supposed to be? He's on, Team 7 now at this point? Trying to tour every team in the league like Josh McCown, but, not in the good way. Not because he's a good backup, but because he's just, he's still there and he's adequate enough, I guess. But, yeah, Josh Rosen probably would have cleaned up an NIL in college or, done well for himself. He did still get that NFL money, unlike this example that you're given here, but yeah, for a lot of guys that will be, and then there will be a lot of guys who make big money in college that absolutely did not deserve it, and there's going to be that too.
Well, and I'll say this. I'll just take you to the Colts today. The Colts cut 2 players that were both Texas Longhorns. They got a lot of attention, and they got a lot of attention when they were recruiting because they were going to Texas. One of them is Holton Hill, and the other is Malik Jefferson. Both those guys were, if you had projected both those guys out when they were in high school, those are guys that are going to play in the NFL for multiple years.
Malik Jefferson had his moments, but there was a thought that he could be
they were treating him like he was Lawrence freaking Taylor. Yeah. Dude. Let's be honest. Yeah. Malik Jefferson, he was the Predator. He was this and that. Him and A&M and him in Texas and the whole recruiting battle. He was totally blown up to be the next LT or someone along those lines, and
he wound up being a 4th or 5th round draft pick. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, YouTube. But he was
not a first rounder.
He was not a first round draft pick, and he may not even been that. I don't know. He was not a high draft pick, and now he's been cut. And look, I would have, if you're Malik Jefferson, I would have liked to make some money off of Austin, Texas, while I was there.
Sure,
and same with Holton Hill.
And he would have made a lot of money, too. I mean, he would have made more money initially than he did by probably his senior year because of all that recruiting buzz early on. But, yeah, absolutely. So that will be, kind of the norm now for a lot of these guys.
But, yeah, I could go up and down the list. And, I could, every team in the league cut a guy this week that was a big deal in college football for a little bit of time. The Bengals cut Puka Williams. Everybody thought he was going to be, a dude. Yeah, Puka Williams got cut.
He just must be such a mess off the field. I don't know that, but he's also small though. So him not making it in the NFL doesn't necessarily mean anything. But that is, you talk about a talented dude though that just.
The Browns cut Marvin Wilson, who 2 years ago people thought was a surefire top 20 pick.
Number 1 recruit in the country 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was something weird about him. From the time I even saw him as a high school blue chip, parade All-American, something about, and this sounds weird for me, his body shape was weird.
It constantly changed. Too.
Yeah, it did.
It was
almost like...
He didn't look super athletic.
Yeah. But there was always something about him. It just seemed freakish in a way that wasn't like, wow, like the kid that we had to see.
Like you're supposed to be impressed, but you weren't really impressed.
Well, and for Marvin Wilson, he went to FSU, and I think part of this is it happens to people. They peak at certain times. Marvin Wilson went to Florida State to play for Jimbo Fisher. That did not happen. He played for Willie Taggart, and he played for Mike Norvell. So he played for Jimbo for a year, but like he did not get to play for the guy he thought he was going to play for. And
because you ran Jimbo out of town.
Yeah, I did.
And okay.
I did want to mention on Malik Jefferson. He was a 3rd-round pick.
Okay.
But what's of interest is that he left school a year early. I'd forgotten about that. So, yeah, he had left school a year early.
Holton Hill was asked to leave.
Yeah, basically. And so you wonder, too, if and people have brought this up. I've seen this brought up. But, does it make guys stay in school for an extra year that might not otherwise?
No, I think it does.
Yeah.
I absolutely think it does.
Well, there's a lot of guys that jump into the NFL because they just need the money right away.
Right.
And they're not going to make that much money. If they're making that much money in college, finish out your eligibility, then go to the NFL when you're ready and maybe make more guaranteed money. I don't know if he was ever going to be an NFL player, but Jamar Toombs at A&M was one of those guys who jumped in. I thought, man, I don't know. And then Javorsky Lane wound up being a good fullback for a few years in the NFL, but he went early, and he didn't get drafted till late. And, why? He could have made a ton of money at College Station,
Charlie Brewer would certainly be a guy who should be set up to make more money in college than he will ever make in the pros.
Mm-hmm.
He's a college player. He's not so much an NFL guy, and there's millions of others, but he's somebody that comes to mind.
He wouldn't have made enormous money, but he would have made money that would be good. His family, of course, his dad, his mom, they do well, but he could have made a chunk of money. You're right.
Heisman Trophy winner Jason White kind of knew he wasn't going to be an NFL quarterback because of his knees.
Yep.
But nice for him to make a little money off of that.
Eric Crouch.
We
can go through a whole list of guys.
Tommy
Ward.
Frazier.
Well, Charlie Ward went NBA. Never mind.
Yeah. All right. When we come back, Hall of Fame writer John McClain, Sikkim, 365 Radio. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943. And that's all I can say and walk away. We're fine. They have steel, metal, pipe. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. 1943, they opened their doors, and they continue to be as good as they've ever been before. In fact, they're expanding the brand new facility in Waco. And golly, they do and have gone through all of the changes of this country. And yet here they are. You've had all these big businesses come in that happen to come into towns, whether they're the huge towns or small towns. And Waco at one point was a really small town back in the day. And Pioneer Steel and Pipe has fought them all. The big box stores that come in and they have all the bulk and they can get a bunch of it, so they lower the price on material. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, because of who they are, what they represent, the product they have, and the fact that they will take care of you as a customer, is getting bigger, better, faster, stronger, but never losing what matters, and that's taking care of you, the customer. Locations in Waco and Bryan, open Saturday, 8 until noon, pioneerboys.com.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with zero payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John McClain of the Houston Chronicle, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and Best in Metal, Steel, and Pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
He's a Hall of Famer, John McClain, Waco native, went to Baylor, Pro Football Hall of Fame writer, joins us Tuesday afternoons on Sikkim 365 Radio. So, John, of the named quarterbacks, of which there were a handful, obviously Cam Newton, one of the bigger names, do the Texans even sniff at him or any of them?
Well, first of all, Cam Newton is not vaccinated. That means anywhere he goes to try out, he has to wait 5 days. He hadn't been able to play in years. He was terrible last year. He was very good this year. He'd still be there. So I'd be shocked if he came to the Texans. Tyrod Taylor, the starter. Backup is rookie Davis Mills. Third quarterback is Deshaun Watson, who's carried on a 53-man roster but will not play. So I do not see them having a fourth quarterback unless he's on the practice squad. And even though you can put veterans on the practice squad, somehow I wouldn't see Cam Newton doing that, even if they wanted Newton, which I don't think they do.
Will Deshaun Watson ever actually dress in that third quarterback role?
Absolutely not. Yeah. They'll have somebody on the practice squad. If one of the other guys gets hurt, then they'll just move the guy from the practice squad to the regular roster. And if they can have you on the 53 and then you only suit up 45, but there would be no reason to suit up Watson since he'll never take another snap here.
John, Kiki QT, I just remember watching him at Texas Tech. I know they brought in another receiver that maybe took up some of the room there, but what was the reasoning, you think, behind Kiki QT's cut?
I have no idea, Craig. I thought he'd made the team. The guy they traded for, Anthony Miller, has a shoulder separation. They cut their other slot receiver, Alex Erickson. And then now tomorrow, when the practice squads are finalized, you can put veterans on there for the second year in a row with any level of experience. But I don't know if they played tomorrow or even this Sunday. I have no idea who their slot receiver would be.
There is more time. I mentioned that to you last time we had you. There's more time between the cuts in the first game. Is that going to mean that that this is going to be just an ongoing process like it would normally be, or is going to be mass changes in some of the rosters? And I say mass, not 10, 15 names, but a chunk on each one?
I'll tell you an interesting thing, David. I would love to know how many players who were cut were unvaccinated. Because even though they can't be cut because they're not vaccinated, they were. And so if they were dumb enough not to get a vaccination, they have trouble getting a job, they deserve exactly what they get. So a lot of those guys who are not vaccinated are not going to be moving around signing with other teams immediately. So you'll see movement, but I don't think it's as much movement as you usually see. But teams are always going to be churning the bottom of the roster and the practice squad, putting a revolving door at their facility as they come and go.
John, how many players do you think this will inspire to get vaccinated if they were not?
Well, if you're stupid enough not to get one and you get cut, it's almost too late, although there's no deadline on stupidity. And so I think the league said that over 93% had been vaccinated, but all it takes is one to cost you a game or two. And I still am really surprised, now regular season hasn't started, that there'd be some division in a locker room. If you got players who are not vaccinated and they test positive, then all of a sudden, they're good players and you lose games, you would think there would be bad feelings toward those players.
John, it's a random name I haven't asked you about. I don't think, since he signed maybe, but how does Mark Ingram fit in Houston?
Mark Ingram is the starting running back for the Texans. They kept 5 running backs. They're going to run the ball a lot, and they plan to have a power running game, 17-game season. They know they're going to need a lot of experienced backs. And David Culley told us today, okay, it's running back by committee, but I guarantee you if someone has a hot hand and looks good in the game or has put together a string of good games, they'll get a lot of carries. But right now, they won't suit them all up on games, but their plan is to keep 5 and play as many as possible because they know some of those guys will get hurt. That's inevitable.
John, hold on, Paul. I'm sorry. I was going to let Paul ask the next one. Have there been more trades than normal in the last 2 or 3 weeks at this time, or is it about normal?
David, it seems to me like there's been more than usual. And I know, like the Texans, they were going to cut defensive end Shaq Lawson. They looked around the league. They got the Jets to give them a 6th-round pick. So that's something. There's a lot of 6th-round picks who've done well in the NFL, but we saw that quite a bit. And I'll guarantee you today, before 3 o'clock, general managers were making a lot of calls trying to get something for guys they were going to get rid of.
John, by the way, Urban Meyer came out and said that he and Trent Baalke took into vaccination status into their cuts.
Well, he's certainly not supposed to say that. The NFL and the union will get all over him because you're not supposed to say it. Early in the training camp, the Buffalo general manager said that it was way, and they jumped all over him. But, they'll say Urban Meyer's inexperienced. You know what? Trent Baalke's not. He should know better.
Do you know Matt Rule's history of where he has been and what he does the second year and especially the third year? I'm not saying that translates in the NFL. How do you and what have you heard around the league or just watching what they're doing with what Matt's doing with Carolina?
Well, they were one of the teams that was seriously interested in Deshaun Watson until all the lawsuits started piling up. But they play here in the third game, the only nationally televised game the Texans play in prime time. And I picked the Texans to beat them because I'm not sold on Sam Darnold, who was like 38th in passer rating last year. Now, maybe Joe Brady, Matt's offensive coordinator, will help turn around his career. But I don't expect him to do much this year. Rule has the full support of the owner. I would think next year would be a better barometer of Matt as a coach in the NFL. But keep in mind, guys, they play in a really tough division with Tampa and New Orleans.
Yeah, and man, I tell you what, the Saints are always dealing with something, aren't they? And unfortunately, with Hurricane Ida, is that going to have any impact at all on their opening week of the season?
I don't think. Yeah, they're going to be gone for a month. They're talking about playing in Dallas or maybe San Antonio, but I think what will impact them more than not being at home is if Jameis Winston doesn't play well as the starting quarterback. They've got everything else. You know, people forget New Orleans won the NFC South last year, not Tampa. The Bucs were a wild card team that averaged 31 points in the playoffs and won the Super Bowl. So that's going to be a battle. And whether New Orleans Jameis Winston, I think even if Drew Brees had returned, people still would pick the Buccaneers. I can't remember another Super Bowl team that had every starter coming back.
Yeah, that's so rare because most of the time they get some money, they get overpaid in free agency, or they get a little disgruntled or whatever. And, man, the run they made was pretty amazing last year. There's no question about it.
They're going to have to pay the piper, David, at some point.
Yep.
All those deals they've done to push the cap problems back a couple of years is going to bite them in the butt. Meanwhile, they're trying to become the first team to repeat since the Patriots in the early after the 03-04 season.
Still crazy.
But if they do it, it's worth it, right?
No, absolutely.
I mean,
yeah. Hell, I would give up. You know, that's one of the things we've talked about this before about college football teams or whatever. John, what would you rather have as a team that once every, 15 years they win a championship, but they're average or mediocre in between, if not that good, or a team that
is really good,
really
good every
all
year,
the
but
time.
never wins a big one.
Like the Buffalo Bills or someone like that knocking on the door, but they could never break it down.
Well, nothing beats having a championship, of course. But if it's like Baylor, and I'd rather see Baylor be good every year, going to a big bowl every year, even though they would come up short on their championship, instead of winning one, then having to wait another 50 or 20 years.
All right, so what do you think about, they're coming off a bad one, 2-7. We know that. They open with Texas State. What are your peeps inside the Baylor program telling you and your friends?
Well, first of all, it's all about the quarterback. You got to have your quarterback. I'm eager to see what Charlie Brewer does at Utah, but you got to play the quarterback. You got the offensive line has got to be better. And of course, the defense with 10 starters back should be better. And really, the first barometer is not going to be these warm-up games. It's going to be Iowa State. I might even have to come to that one after not being there last year.
Thank you, John, Hall of Fame writer. John McClain, Houston Chronicle. Where's the ending?
I'm waiting for it.
Did you lose him?
No, he's there. John, you're there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, all right. We were saying thank you, buddy. Have a great week, and good luck handling all these transactions.
Well, guys, thank you. And remember, check them.
There we go. There we go.
Can't end it. I can't end it.
No, you can't.
I had to call him back just to have him say that.
Quick note, and then Paul has his top 5 coming up here momentarily. But Texas State, who Baylor plays Saturday in San Marcos. Here's some names to remember. Remember Emmanuel Abdallah, the running back who was spectacular at China Spring? He's on the roster. DeMarquis Hayes from La Vega. Belton linebacker Devin Martinez. Aaron Allard, his dad played at Texas. Ty played in the NFL, I think, as well. Linebacker from Lexington. 4 local names on that Texas State roster. All right, anything else? Here's a question from the text line from last night. I tried to print a couple of them out from the 505. As we talk about Big 12 expansion, what future games would you look forward to seeing the most on an annual basis within the newly expanded Big 12? Of course, that means we have to know who those are, and we don't. But is there anyone in particular that would scratch your itch a little bit more of those who are possibility of being that, because you're losing Texas and Oklahoma and you can't replace them in many ways, money-wise, image-wise, national whatever-wise, and you surely can't with tradition either.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's hard to say. I think it'll determine on how good the teams are when they come in and how good they get quickly. So if UCF is the best team when they come in, and if Oklahoma State and UCF is a great game, fine. I just don't know. I don't know how to measure that right now because like Baylor's playing BYU this year. That might be a future Big 12 game. We don't know yet. So maybe that's a rivalry.
How ironic is it after so many years of a horrible non-conference schedule, they finally have one that kind of goes up a notch. And they've had Duke and a couple of other teams last year. They're going to play a couple good. Last year would have been a nice and Ole Miss. But they get them, and now this is the year that so much is being discussed when it comes to Brigham Young and expansion. Kind of a weird timing how that works. Craig, any of them scratch your itch?
I mean, I haven't really thought about it all that much because, like Paul said, I mean, we don't know who's who or who's what. So, I mean, off the top of my head, Houston versus the Texas schools, okay.
Yeah.
Cincy, West Virginia, proximity as well. But like is UCF in it? If they are, then yeah, I could maybe think of like UCF versus TCU as one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any thoughts on it until it's settled a little bit more.
Like if the conversation included a couple of teams from the SEC or included someone that has been a part of the Power Five before, or included perhaps Arizona State or someone like that, then I think that we could look at those. But none of that right now seems to be feasible, possible, and probably won't happen.
It's not like Texas moving to the SEC and it's like, oh, hey, there's Arkansas again.
Yeah.
And, there's not that. I mean, I guess Cincy, West Virginia, because of, again, proximity, UCF versus pretty much everybody I think would probably be pretty interesting. The Texas schools, obviously, versus Houston would be interesting. Baptist versus Mormons, BYU and Baylor could potentially turn into a little something. So, yeah, I mean, those are some that come off the top of my head. But, no, there's no, any great rivalry looming that I'm thinking of.
All right, one note from Daniel, the text line, and then we break, come back with Paul's top five. I found a website, FBS attendance averages from 15 to 19 potential additions to the Big 12. Brigham Young, 28th out of 130. Memphis, 59th. UCF is 61st. South Florida, 66. Cincinnati, 67. Boise State, 68. Houston, 70. Colorado State, 77. For the record, Baylor is 48th, and UNLV, who has been brought up as because of what Vegas is getting into now, is 105th.
There you go. So there's a reason why the Pac-12 hadn't already poached them if they were so much of a crown jewel in waiting, and I'm sure there's other factors as well. But I'd be curious where SMU falls on that. Can't imagine it's very high either. But yeah, that's interesting to know, and I'm sure that is something that will definitely be taken into consideration. You're not going to come at a team who's not going to bring fans to the stadium on a weekly basis. So I'm sure that will be one of the many factors being weighed by these Big 12 officials as they go through whatever this process is going to be in regards to expansion.
All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's top five at 5:55, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua Cigars. I remember just a few years ago when Carol and Ashley at Don's Humidor told me that this was the number one rated cigar in the world, and they have the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua Cigars inside their 48-foot walk-in humidor. It's Don's Humidor in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. The latest, the medium to full-bodied cigar, great reviews, accolades from all of the various, I guess you could say, magazines and online reviews for Cuatro Nicaragua cigars, a result of a collaboration of cigar makers from Romeo and Julieta, one of the great brands. I love that cigar. And Monte Cristo, which is another incredible name brand, and I like that cigar as well. It means that every part of the cigar, of the Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua, the wrapper, the filler, and the binder all come from Nicaragua. Those who have already tried the cigars report hints of cocoa, hay, and black pepper. Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua comes in different sizes, of course, the Churchill length, the Robusto, and Torpedo if you want that style, and also Toro. It's Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua cigars inside 48-foot walk-in humidor, Don's Humidor, and coffee beans, fresh ground coffee beans every day in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobbets, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasonings, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or wacocustommarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Sikkim 365 Radio. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55. Presented by Slapsticks Comedy Club. For ticket information, go to slapstickscomedy.com.
All right, top 5. Schools not coming to the Big 12. I thought we needed to do this because as, you know, the list gets shorter and shorter after we, eliminate, I had to do the one, Craig, a couple weeks ago where it's like, listen, guys, you can't say Nebraska, you can't say Arkansas, you can't say Arizona, you can't say Arizona. Not going to happen. So we had to get that out. These are ones we keep getting that are also not going to happen. So these are also not going to happen. Number 5, SMU. Not going to happen. SMU is, I'm not going to say they're not going to at least dip their toe in the water, but they're not that attractive. I think they're kind of happy with where they are right now. It's taken them 30 years to build back into a winning program. I think they're going to stay where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, I can't obviously say for sure on any of these, or at least on SMU. Like, I have no idea what the Big 12 thinks. I mean, maybe the Big 12, has a theory that getting a Dallas school and a Houston school would be beneficial, and if so, then I could see where SMU fits into that picture, even with TCU there in Fort Worth. But I'm a no on this. I'm open to Cincinnati. I'm open to BYU. I'm open to even Houston. But SMU, it's too small. It's not TV ratings it's not the big money that you're looking for. I mean, SMU has money. It's just that it all belongs to the student body for the most part, which is not a large group of people to begin with. So, I mean, hey, what they're doing right now is great. Like, they're the team with cool uniforms and cool offense. They basically have like some of Baylor's Bryles identity, quite frankly, with Sonny Dykes. But I think they're fine with where they are, and I don't think they bring anything to the Big 12. I just don't.
Yeah. Number 4, USF. Look, if you're going to take a team from Florida, you're going to take UCF. You're probably not going to tell USF is so far down the list. I know they keep getting mentioned as like a travel partner. Believe me, these two schools are not buddy-buddy. They don't care about each other. UCF would leave them in the dust, and USF's not coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one where, it all depends on what the Big 12 really wants. I don't know. But if I had to take one of these two, because I don't think you're probably, like you said, adding 2 Florida schools. I just don't know what sense that would make. I'm definitely taking UCF over USF, no question.
No, I don't think there's any doubt. And I know that USF made that run like in the mid-2000s. Didn't they make a run where they got to be one year? They were like number 2 in the country. Who was that as coaching at the time? Was that Levitt? Or is he the one that got fired quick?
Well, he did well and also got fired. So, okay. And then Willie Taggart did well there for a year. So, I mean, and then he went to Oregon. So,
I just don't think the Tampa market does much for you, versus Orlando. I think it's an easy choice.
Yeah. Number 3, I've gotten this text so many times throughout the text line, call, UConn.
No.
UConn's not coming.
They don't care about football.
They don't care about anything anymore.
Well, they do
when it's basketball. But they've got a lot of problems with that athletic department right now. But
why were they 3 instead of like 5?
Well, I mean, this is kind of no particular order. Okay. I mean, like, there's no.
No, I demand you have a higher standard of list.
Yeah, wow, UConn just played their first game in nearly 2 years. A couple days ago, got beat 45-0 by Fresno State. So
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's
I've seen them kind of tossed out there, and I don't know if that's basketball related. That's all I can think of. But didn't UConn get out of the AAC?
Yeah.
Because, like, their football is just so irrelevant. So they're leaving the AAC to go down, basically. You're not going to bring them up a couple levels to the Big 12. Hell no.
No. Number 2, UNLV. We've talked about this last week a little bit. Like, yes, they're in a gigantic emerging market in Las Vegas, but the school's got to get bigger and more relevant. And you would think if they were worth it, the Pac-12 would have already jumped on this.
I mean, I would think so, but, I don't know the timeline of Pac-12 expansion. Maybe this is something they've been eyeing, and they're like, hey, in a couple years, UNLV will be ready. I don't know. I know the case for them is basically their location and the amount of money that's there and all of that, but I've never given 2 blanks about UNLV football in my life. I've never needed to. The only thing I really think of with UNLV is Tark, and that was the early 90s.
Randall Cunningham?
Yeah.
Same time period.
Yeah, 80s.
Yeah, like even earlier. So they're in Las Vegas. That's awesome. That's all I know about UNLV and why they would be worthy for the Big 12, and that's not enough for me personally, but hey, who knows?
And number 1, San Diego State. And as nice as the new stadium might be and all that.
Fun road trips.
They're like, look, great road trips. They're great road trips. But bottom line, again, San Diego State's right in California. If California could support another P5 school, they probably would.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it's like the It's like if A&M and Texas had their way, okay, they'll allow a couple teams like Baylor and TCU or Texas Tech into the mix, but they aren't going to also allow Houston and Rice and North Texas and, like there's got to be a cutoff somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, cool location again, just like with UNLV, but what am I going back to? Garrison Hurst, basically, to think of the last San Diego player. No,
it was Marshall
Falk. Yeah. Marshall Falk.
Kawhi Leonard went there, but he played basketball.
Yeah, he did.
So.
But yeah, I mean, cool location. I've heard them get brought up recently as well. I don't really know the ammunition behind it, so if somebody wants to explain that better, but I don't think that I think if they're going, super west, that would make sense, but they're not one of my top 4 to 6 teams probably.
San Diego, Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, all that's cool.
Tampa. But, again, if that was important.
A really nice part of Dallas if you're from the other part,
Yeah. It'd be the best studio we'd ever have. We'd have a bureau in Las Vegas to cover the Big 12 West or whatever it's going to be called. Okay, we got to go. Jack McKenzie, Armstrong Sims behind the scenes as always. Thank you, our great sponsors. We appreciate you every single day as we continue to build, as we clock another month. April 6th of 2020 now through August of today. Busy show scheduled for tomorrow as well. Tanner Mordecai, SMU starting quarterback from Midway, will join us tomorrow. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Thank you to the chat room. My gosh, you guys are constantly just and the text line and the calls. Good night, Sikkim 365 Radio.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.